Thanks for joining us online. The program will begin shortly.
All right, good afternoon to everyone here today. I first of all want to tell you how happy I am to see you all. Frankly, I'm happy to see anyone nowadays, but to see those of you here in this final round, congratulations to all of you for getting here. I'm Judge Ruben Villalobos. I've been a mock trial student and a coach, and I've judged it now for several years. I also now been a judge for 7 years, and I'm on the criminal bench. If I could have our attorney scores just take a brief moment to introduce themselves, and we will hear from them a little bit later.
Thanks, John. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jeff Legero. I'm the Assistant District Attorney to the DA's office here.
All right, and I'm just going to repeat that. Jeff Legero, Assistant. Your title is? Assistant. The Assistant District Attorney, Stanislaus County. Thank you. Ms. Ratliff, Deputy County Counsel, thank you for being here today. And last but certainly not least.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Reed Wagner. I'm the Chief Deputy of the Stanislaus County Public Defender's Office.
Chief Deputy Reed Wagner, Public Defender's Office. Thank you all for taking time out of your schedules to be here today. The court appreciates you, and I know the kids do as well. The kids, the young folk. And without further ado, let's begin with introductions. Would the prosecution like to begin by introducing themselves?
Yes, Your Honor. My name is Hannah Sahota, and I represent the people's pretrial motion for today's proceedings. Please allow my co-counsel to introduce themselves.
Please.
Good evening, Your Honor. My name is Mark Rosales. Tonight I'll be the prosecution attorney. Tonight I'll be conducting the prosecution's opening statement, as well as the direct examination for Sheriff Tony Garrett and the cross-examination for defendant Jamie Cook.
Thank you.
Your Honor, my name is Leah Romeo, and tonight I'm the prosecution attorney. I'll be conducting the direct examination of Angel Russell, as well as Terry Edwards, and the cross-examination of Danny Emling and Francis Yasmin.
Good evening, Your Honor. My name is Catherine Ogden, and I am the prosecutor in tonight's proceeding. I will be providing the direct examination of Dr. Dunn, the cross-examination of Dr. Tyler Clay, as well as providing the closing argument. Please allow our expert witnesses to say their names in order of appearance.
Please.
Good evening, Your Honor. My name is Mallory Parker, and tonight I'll be portraying Angel Russell.
Good evening. My name is Lily Fripp, and tonight I'll be portraying Deputy Sheriff Tony Garrett.
My name is London Holgren, and tonight I'll be portraying Terry Edwards.
Good evening, Your Honor. My name is
Please.
Good evening, Your Honor. I'll be the clerk for tonight's mock trial competition. My name is Livia Romeo, and I'll be giving the visual and verbal time warnings of 2 minutes, 1 minute, 30 seconds, and stop. Please allow our teacher coaches to introduce themselves.
Please.
Good evening, Your Honor. My name is Joe Ogden. I'm a teacher coach for the prosecution. Please allow my fellow teacher coach and introduce himself.
Good evening, Your Honor. I'm Rex Rabine, and I'm the teacher coach for Team K, and I introduce our training.
Good evening, Your Honor. Thanks, Forrest. I'm Richard Evans, training coach for Team K.
Thank you so much. For the prosecution, any other introductions that I missed? Thank you so much. Would the defense like to make their introductions?
Yes, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Your Honor, scoring attorneys and opposing counsel. My name is Jifa Akwai, and today I will be presenting the pretrial motion on behalf of my client, Jamie Kobe. Now, may the rest of my team please introduce themselves.
Please.
Good afternoon, Your Honor, scoring attorneys and opposing counsel. My name is Julia Naya, and today I will be representing my client, Jamie Kobe.
Good afternoon, Your Honor, scoring attorneys and opposing counsel. My name is Joshua Schultz, and I will be representing my client, Jamie Kobe.
Good afternoon, Your Honor, scoring attorneys and opposing counsel. My name is Shannon McGee, and tonight I will be representing my client, Jamie Kobe. Now, may the rest of my team please introduce themselves and
Please.
the order in which they appear.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. Scoring attorneys. My name is Lucy Lang, and tonight I will be portraying Danielle.
Good afternoon, Your Honor, and scoring attorneys. My name is Iglani Alvarez, and today I'll be portraying the role of Enthusiasm.
Good afternoon, Your Honor, and scoring attorneys. My name is Emma Quiniaga, and today I will be portraying Dr. Tyler Clay.
Good evening, Your Honor, and scoring attorneys. My name is Saloni Bunsell, and today I will be portraying Jamie Kobe. Now, may our bailiff please introduce himself to the court?
Please.
Good afternoon,
Right
Your
there.
Honor, and scoring attorneys. My name is Brandon Sen, and today I will be the courtroom's bailiff. Your Honor, at this time, may I please address the room with the rules of court.
Please.
May everyone please turn off all electronic devices and refrain from talking while the trial is in session. There will be no food nor any beverage with the exception of water. That'd be all.
All right, and I just turned off my phone. Go ahead.
Now, may our ultimate timekeeper please introduce themselves.
Please.
Good afternoon, Your Honor, and scoring attorneys. My name is Joshan from there, and tonight I will be the alternate timekeeper. Now, may our coaches please introduce themselves.
Please.
Good afternoon, Your Honor, and scoring attorneys. My name is Scott Mitchell, and I am a teacher coach for Team B.
Good afternoon, Your Honor, and scoring attorneys. My name is William Johnson, and I am a teacher coach for Team B.
Good afternoon, Your Honor, scoring attorneys. My name is Dawn Spulak. I'm an attorney coach for Team B.
Welcome. Thank you all for being here today. Any other introductions? Okay. I think you were about to say no, right, counsel?
Yes.
Okay. So before we proceed, I know we're going to have the pretrial arguments in a moment. Before we do that, do both sides waive formal reading of the mock trial rules? Let me ask the prosecution first.
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you. And defense?
Yes, Your Honor.
And just give me a moment here. I'm going to let you all know that I'm actually, frankly, just back from 2 weeks away. I just got over the coronavirus. I'm a little short of air. If I need you to speak up, please realize that I'll ask you to do so. I think I'm going to be fine. We're good to go. With that, I believe the defense, it is your motion. Are you ready to proceed?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. Please proceed.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. In October 2020, Eric Smith received a smart camera from Deputy Sheriff Tony Garrett. As a condition of receiving this camera, Smith was required to send all footage directly to the cloud account shared between Smith and the Sheriff's Department. Smith was given a, quote, state-of-the-art camera, end quote, which was set up on a pole on the property, had a motion detector, and looked directly into Jamie Kobe's backyard without her consent. Garrett even instructed Smith how to set up the camera onto the pole to look into Jamie Kobe's backyard. By giving Smith the camera, telling Smith where to place the camera, and receiving constant access to the footage captured in Jamie Kobe's backyard, Deputy Sheriff Tony Garrett violated my client's Fourth Amendment rights.
How? Counsel, how?
Your Honor, by putting up this camera onto the pole on the property and receiving constant access to the footage of Jamie Kobe's backyard, which was on surveillance nonstop for over 6 months, Deputy Sheriff had a extended access to my client's backyard that they otherwise would not have been able to access without this smart camera.
Okay. And the cases that you reviewed, any of the cases support your premise?
Yes, Your Honor. Multiple cases support my premise, such as the case of U.S. v. Romero Bustamante and the case of Schaefer versus City of Boulder.
Okay, please proceed with your argument.
The two-part test used to determine whether an unreasonable search and seizure has occurred is found in Katz v. U.S. and looks at the subjective and objective factors. First, the court looks at whether the defendant has shown an actual expectation of privacy. Second, the court looks at whether society finds that expectation as reasonable. Using a high-tech camera that was not easily accessible to the public to look into my client's backyard was beyond hers and anyone else's expectation of privacy without a warrant. Ms. Kobe was made uncomfortable by this camera and found it, quote, creepy and weird, end quote. She explicitly told Eric Smith that he did not have permission to film her backyard, but this didn't stop the search from continuing. Thus, Kobe had a subjective expectation of privacy. She would consider her backyard to be the curtilage of her home as she practiced her gardening privately inside the fence that surrounded it.
So, counsel, what is curtilage?
Your Honor, curtilage would be an enclosed space that is adjacent to the home.
And was the space enclosed?
Yes, Your Honor. It was enclosed partially by a 6-foot-tall wooden fence around most of the yard, and in one part, a 4-foot-tall wire link chain fence.
So was it enclosed or was it enclosed partially?
It was enclosed completely.
Okay, please proceed.
Furthermore, the desert environment provided her with an expectation of privacy as it was rare for people to pass by, and she lived far away from her neighbors. The average person wouldn't expect the surveillance of their home to be transmitted to the police department every hour of the day, especially if they live with a sizable distance between their home and their neighbor's home. Certain factors can make surveillance more likely to violate the Fourth Amendment, including the type of technology used and how many hours the surveillance takes place. The high-tech camera, which was set up by Eric Smith, was in direct connection to the police department, therefore making it an agent of the law and making this an illegal search. In the case of U.S. v. Romero Bustamante, the defendant's backyard was enclosed in part by a brick wall and in another part by a wire link chain fence, just like Ms. Kobe's backyard. The court found that because the defendant's backyard was enclosed, adjacent to their home and behind their home, that the search was a violation of their Fourth Amendment rights. The same ruling should be held today. In the case of Schaefer versus City of Boulder, the defendant's backyard was under surveillance from a camera given to their neighbor by a federal agent 24 hours a day for 56 days, and the court ruled that this constituted as a search under the Fourth Amendment. Similarly, the high-tech motion-detecting camera provided and set up by Sheriff Tony Garrett was on surveillance nonstop for over 6 months. In the case of People v. Weaver, the courts were concerned that technological advances could lead to abuses of power by law enforcement and thus require judicial oversight. In People v. Weaver, the surveillance was for 65 days. In the case at bar, it was for over 203 days. This was an abuse of power that the courts were trying to prevent in People v. Weaver. On April 29, 2021, the camera captured footage of snake feeding tongs on my client's property. As this footage was not preceded by a warrant, it was violating the Fourth Amendment rights of my client and should not be admissible at bar today. For this reason, the defense kindly asks that you suppress the video surveillance captured on that day, or Exhibit A, from evidence in today's trial. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you very much. And on behalf of the prosecution, are you ready to proceed?
Yes, we are
All
ready
right,
to proceed.
please do so.
May I begin?
Yes, please do so.
Your Honor, I am here to request the inclusion of Exhibit A, otherwise known as the picture of snake tongues, to be used in court as evidence, as it was obtained constitutionally and lawfully by the Fourth Amendment through the use of Eric Smith's personal camera located in his residence. Exhibit A, the picture of the snake tongues, was located...
So let me interrupt you. So you say it was his personal camera. Your opponent said that this was a high-tech camera directly tied to the police. Your thoughts on that?
Yes, this was a camera directly tied to the police, but the surveillance was only accessed after May 2nd, following Eric Smith's death, so it was not under constant surveillance. It was provided by law enforcement, but law enforcement did not access it until the incident with Eric Smith happened.
Thank you. Please proceed.
Exhibit A, the picture of the snake tongues, was located in Kobe's backyard, which was near a 4-foot tall by 3-foot wide chain link fence gate in the back of the property that opened to a state park that abutted the entire Purell. Thus, the evidence was visible to anyone looking in from outside Kobe's residence, making it reasonable to be obtained after the incident with Eric Smith occurred. As stated in the Katz versus U.S. case, objects, activities, or statements that a person exposes to the plain view of outsiders are not protected because no intention to keep them to himself has been exhibited, therefore making the photograph constitutional, as anyone could see through Kobe's chain link fence gate and see Exhibit A. The case versus Kyle versus U.S. emphasizes this notion, as an investigation was deemed an unreasonable search because it was not readily available for general public use and explored, and I quote, details of a private home that would have previously been unknowable without physical intrusion. Kobe, by this statement, did not have a reasonable expectation of privacy because the evidence could have been obtained without Eric Smith's surveillance camera, as any law enforcement officer could have seen through the chain link fence gate and have seen Exhibit A. The court took the Fourth Amendment statement of making a firm line at the entrance to the house, which does not apply to Kobe, as the evidence was partially open to public land rather than being completely enclosed in Kobe's residence. Furthermore, in U.S. versus Caro and California versus Cirolo, both federal cases established that both observations and searches were not unconstitutional because they, and I quote, did not serve any function that police could have not performed visually, and had the sole purpose of making the process of the investigation easier, with no interference with the defendant's interest in the possessions occurring. The U.S. versus Cirolo case was nearly identical to the Kobe versus Smith case, with the only difference being that it was a warrantless aerial observation, whereas the Kobe versus Smith case, Exhibit A was obtained through a surveillance camera in Eric Smith's residence. This surveillance camera was placed and provided by Deputy Sheriff Tony Garrett after Eric Smith had reported a break-in, with Kobe being the main suspect due to their previous history of unneighborly behavior, such as Kobe leading coyote feces on Smith's yard and even throwing things into Eric Smith's backyard. The camera had probable cause to be there, after an investigation, the sheriff found that Kobe had extensive knowledge of handling snakes, therefore accessing the surveillance camera. And there was a large 24 by 36-inch sign that clearly stated, "Smile, you're on camera," in bold, big letters, so that Kobe was fully aware of its presence. So the camera was very transparent and was in plain view with the consent of the homeowner, Eric Smith. In addition, law enforcement only accessed the surveillance feed on May 2nd, following Eric Smith's death, which meant that Kobe's residence was not, under any circumstance, under constant surveillance, and the picture was only used to assist in this investigation. Kobe's backyard was open to public land that bordered the Purell on which Kobe's home was located, and any law enforcement officer could have seen Exhibit A through the fence. In addition, it was not under constant surveillance, as it was accessed after May 2nd, and law enforcement could see it clearly, making the search an exception to the warrant requirement. Therefore, Your Honor, it is respectfully submitted that the motion to exclude evidence be denied. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And does the defense have a rebuttal?
Yes, Your Honor. Your Honor, Counsel Sahota states the cases of California v. Cirolo as almost identical to the case at bar, but that simply is not true. In the case of California v. Cirolo, the police had a glance over, flyover of the defendant's backyard, and they were looking down from navigable airspace 1,000 feet in the air. In the case at bar, the high-tech camera that was looking directly into every square inch of Jamie Kobe's backyard was on surveillance for 6 months nonstop and was placed on a 10-foot high pole, which means...
Counsel, let me ask you a question as to the point that Ms. Sahota indicated as far as the sign being there saying, "Smile, you're on camera." How does that factor into the analysis of the case and specifically an expectation of privacy?
Well, Your Honor, Jamie Kobe, even if she had seen the sign that said "Smile, you're on camera," Jamie Kobe would assume that this surveillance was coming from her neighbor. Jamie Kobe was unaware that Sheriff Tony Garrett was behind this surveillance. So because of that, she was not aware that she was being surveilled by law enforcement and might have just chalked it up to the tense relationship that she had with Eric Smith.
Okay, thank you. Please proceed.
So for these reasons, the case of California v. Zarello is not applicable to the case at bar. Counsel also states that Garrett had decided to place the camera over Jamie Kobe's land after finding that she had broken into, or after a suspicion that she had broken into Eric Smith's backyard. But Officer Tony Garrett found that he found, quote, no evidence of that at all. And after he had continued to find no evidence of Kobe breaking into Smith's home, Garrett's extensive filming of Jamie Kobe's backyard would become inadmissible and unreasonable. And for these reasons, the defense respectfully asks that you grant our motion and find this video surveillance, which was not preceded by a warrant, inadmissible at bar today. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you very much. And does the prosecution have a rebuttal?
Yes, Your Honor.
Please proceed.
The opposition states that all footage was sent to the sheriff's office and was under 24/7 constant surveillance, which violated Kobe's expectation of privacy. However, this surveillance did not defend the defendant's right to privacy in her home, as it was solely used to make the process of the investigation easier. There was a 6-foot-high wooden fencing, as the opposition stated, but there was a chain-link fence gate which made it partially open to public land and put the snake tongs in clear view. The police were very capable of looking through this 4-foot-tall by 3-foot-wide chain-link transparent fence gate without issue and seeing the snake tongs as shown in Exhibit A. This chain-link fence gate was very large and made visible virtually anyone passing by Kobe's house, Exhibit A. In this case, it is not a matter of who could look through the fence, but rather the evidence being located in an open area, revoking reasonable expectation of privacy, as no intention to keep them to himself, as stated in U.S. v. Katz, has been exhibited. In addition, law enforcement only accessed the surveillance on May 2nd following the death of Eric Smith, and was only used to assist in this case, following the sheriff's investigation, finding that Kobe had extensive knowledge in handling snakes, giving him probable cause to access the surveillance feed. In addition, Kobe never took formal action to remove this camera. She simply stated it was creepy and even forgot about it, but it was in full view with a 36 by 24-inch sign saying, "Smile, you're on camera," therefore revoking her right to privacy. So therefore, this does not need a warrant due to probable cause from the sheriff, and Kobe had extensive experience with handling snakes and is therefore a suspect. The backyard was part of Kobe's curtilage, but she did virtually nothing to cover up or shield the existence of the snake tongs from anyone, on the outside or from the security cameras. Therefore, she did not have a reasonable expectation of privacy. It was not enclosed, and the snake tongs were able to be viewed by anyone through the chain link fence gate.
Thank you very much. And so the court has heard from the prosecution and the defense. Before I rule, I'll give the attorneys the opportunity to confer with their attorneys or teachers if they believe that there are any irregularities. I'll ask the prosecution, ready to proceed?
Yes, Your Honor, we are ready to proceed.
Defense?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, the court is now prepared to rule. The court has heard, frankly, some of the best argument I've heard all day from these two attorneys, and I was listening to really good, real attorneys all day long. You both did a great job. The court is going to find that the motion is denied, the evidence is not suppressed. Now, with that, I think we'll take a moment for you to rearrange your teams at this point. Is that okay?
Yes, thank you, Your Honor.
Excellent. And also, if I could get a little bit of assistance here, I'm going to distance myself a little bit more from the witness. Can I get some help moving this over a little bit? Thank you. And everyone else can get themselves in line. All right, is the prosecution ready to proceed?
Yes, Your Honor, the prosecution is ready to proceed. However, we have a few preliminary matters.
We'll get there. Defense ready to proceed?
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you. You have some preliminary matters. Let's hear those, counsel.
Your Honor, the state wishes to ask that items A through E be marked for identification and used in tonight's trial.
Thank you. Any objection?
No objections, Your Honor.
Well, let me go back a sec. And you say marked for identification and used for today's trial. What do you mean by that?
That the exhibits be marked for identification, and then we can introduce them in tonight's trial.
Okay, so they are marked for identification. There is no objection. Any other preliminary issues on behalf of the prosecution?
No, Your Honor, the prosecution is ready to proceed.
Thank you very much. Any preliminary issues for the defense?
Yes, Your Honor.
Please proceed.
We would like to make sure that everyone participating in the trial tonight has a physical copy of the updated case packet dated January 10th, 2022.
Thank you. I'll leave it to the parties to have the appropriate documentation.
Thank you, Your Honor. And we'd also like to establish that witnesses be constructively excluded from the courtroom, and although they may be present during the trial, they may not testify as though they are.
Thank you. Any comments on behalf of the prosecution?
No, Your Honor, not at this time.
That will be the order of the court. Thank you. Anything further for the defense?
Nothing further, Your Honor. Thank you.
All right, thank you both. So I have a couple of questions. I think we've addressed the presentation of evidence for inspection. Do both sides waive formal reading of the charges on behalf of the defense
Yes, Your Honor.
and on behalf of the prosecution?
Yes, Your Honor.
With that, are we ready to proceed with opening statements?
The prosecution is ready, Your Honor.
And you'll be ready?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, we'll start with the prosecution. You have the floor. And before we proceed, I want everyone to understand, the attorneys, that from my perspective, even though this is my courtroom, it is your courtroom, and feel free to use it as you see fit. You don't have to ask my permission to approach or do anything. I trust you to do what's appropriate. Please proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. May I proceed with my opening statement?
You most certainly can.
Thank you. Over the course of the COVID-19 pandemic, businesses shut, economies faltered, and people were evicted from their homes. However, one of the most tragic examples of the effects of this pandemic is the death of Eric Smith. Eric Smith is a landlord who owned a property in which Jamie Kobe resided in. The relationship between the two can only be described as toxic, with continued minute fighting driving their relationship towards a downright hatred. During one of these fights, Jamie Kobe's mother passed away due to a lack of oxygen because of a power outage at Kobe's residence, which Kobe blamed on Eric Smith. Over the course of this trial tonight, the prosecution will tell you a story of revenge. Jamie Kobe is charged with murder in the first degree, as well as voluntary manslaughter. Over the course of this trial, the evidence will outline to you how the testimony and findings of numerous witnesses will eventually lead to the conviction of Jamie Kobe on the charge of murder in the first degree. Jamie Kobe was without a doubt a person who had a fixation on the knowledge of rattlesnakes. Jamie Kobe even knew so much about these rattlesnakes that Kobe possessed tools to safely handle rattlesnakes, such as snake traps, snake tongs, snake handling cages, and even snake rattles, as later found and will be explained to you in Sheriff Garrett's testimony. In Sheriff Garrett's testimony, you will also hear how the relationship between Jamie Kobe and Eric Smith continued to evolve with calls to their department. Through the testimony of Dr. Dunn, you will hear how the death of Eric Smith was solely as a result of the bite of the Mojave Desert rattlesnake. You will also hear from Dr. Dunn how the snake had to have been placed in the mailbox by a third party due to historical trends with the Mojave Desert rattlesnake. Through the expertise of Dr. Dunn, you will come to an understanding of how her autopsy of the victim, Eric Smith, corroborates with the testimony of Angel Russell, who saw the event transpire. On the morning of the attack, Angel Russell witnessed a figure carry a medium-sized wire cage tool bag and a humane animal trap to the mailbox of Eric Smith. Angel Russell then witnessed this figure stare at the mailbox for a long time before leaving. Shortly after this, Eric Smith was bitten by the Mojave Desert rattlesnake, which was placed in the mailbox by this figure. Through the testimony of Terry Edwards, you will come to an understanding of how Jamie Kobe had planned, calculated, and premeditated the murder. Through all listed evidence, the state will prove that the defendant, Jamie Kobe, utilized their knowledge of rattlesnakes to enact revenge upon the victim for their property disputes and the death of Kobe's mother. The defendant was the figure who was seen by Angel Russell and, upon examination of the mailbox, placed a snake into the mailbox with the intent that it would put an end to the life of Eric Smith. This aspiration of the defendant came to fruition when Eric Smith was found dead the day following the attack, as discovered by Sheriff Tony Garrett. The evidence in this case will tell you a story. It will tell you the story of a tenant and a landlord who feuded over multiple property disputes, and the tension continued to heighten and increase until the defendant finally ended the conflict by taking the life of the victim, Eric Smith, to enact vengeance for the death of his mother. Throughout the entirety of tonight's trial, the evidence will show beyond a reasonable doubt that Eric Smith was murdered by Jamie Kobe. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you very much. Would the defense like to proceed with their opening now or defer?
Now, Your Honor.
All right, please proceed.
A tragic accident. This is the only accurate way to describe the events of April 30th, 2021. Today, the people will try to create some elaborate story about Jamie Kobe, and that's all that it is, a story. On the morning of April 30th, Eric Smith was found dead, lying face down in the dirt of his front yard after being bitten by a Mojave rattlesnake the previous day. The sheriff was called immediately, and when the sheriff arrived, they performed a careless investigation, which consisted of a quick glance at Eric Smith's body and a hasty visual search of the surrounding area before making a beeline straight to Jamie Kobe's house. After a very brief conversation with Jamie, the sheriff suspected Jamie may have killed Eric due to their history. Now, don't get me wrong, Jamie and Eric were certainly not the best of friends. In fact, Eric wasn't on good terms with a lot of people in Burnsley County, being well known for being rude and selling drugs to children. If having a bad relationship with Eric Smith is enough to suspect someone of murder, a vast majority of the residents of Burnsley County would be in the exact same place Jamie is in right now. Jamie and Eric had disputes over cars being in the wrong driveway or loud music. But Jamie Kobe, who's described by her friends as a calm, gentle person, would certainly not resort to murder over some loud music. Today, the people will have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Jamie Kobe killed Eric Smith in a manner that was willful, deliberate, and premeditated. The people will not be able to prove their burden, leaving the only option to find Jamie Kobe not guilty. Your Honor, today you will hear from 4 witnesses. First, Danny Emling, a neighbor of Jamie's, and one of Eric Smith's tenants will take the stand and explain that this whole thing is a mistake and that Jamie Kobe has absolutely nothing to do with Eric's death. Second, Francis Yazzie, a close, personal friend of Jamie's, will explain that Jamie is not capable of doing anything like this. Third, Dr. Tyler Clay, an expert in herpetology, or more specifically snakes, will explain that snakes squeezing into tight, dark spaces, like mailboxes, on their own during the day is not an unusual occurrence, and that most people who live in the desert are aware of this and thus wary of opening their mailboxes. She will also testify that it is extremely rare to die from a rattlesnake bite due to widely available antivenom, making a snake an odd choice for a murder weapon if someone truly wanted to kill someone. Lastly, Jamie Kobe herself will take the stand and explain that she did not kill Eric Smith, nor did she put a snake in his mailbox. She will testify that she's merely a gardener who loved her mother and has absolutely nothing to hide. Now, after reviewing the evidence provided in today's case, it will be clear that the people's case is filled to the brim with reasonable doubt, and the only reasonable decision will be to find Jamie Kobe not guilty. Please, don't let this horrible tragedy destroy any more lives than it already has. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you very much, counsel. Give me one moment to finish my notes here. Is the prosecution ready to call the first witness?
Yes, Your Honor, the prosecution would like to call Angel Russell to the stand.
All right, please proceed.
Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly affirm that the testimony you're about to give will faithfully and truthfully conform to the facts and rules of the Montreal Constitution?
Yes.
Please be seated. Please state your full name, then spell your last name before.
Angel Russell, Russell.
For the convenience of this court, this witness's statement can be found on page 38 of the case packet.
Thank you, counsel. Please proceed.
Good evening, Ms. Russell.
Good evening.
Please provide the court with some background information about yourself.
I've been a line worker in Burnsley County for 15 years. I've worked on just about every line in the town of Burnsley and know many of the residents.
Do you know the victim, Eric Smith?
I recognize Smith and have seen him around town, as well as on April 29th and 30th when I was working on the power lines 100 feet down from his home.
Thank you. And now I'd like to direct the court's attention to Exhibit C. Ms. Russell, please approach the exhibit.
Yes.
And are you familiar with this exhibit?
Yes, I am.
And what is Exhibit C?
Exhibit C is an aerial photographic diagram showing the location of where I was working on Raptor Road on April 29th and 30th.
And is this an accurate representation of the area and the surrounding properties?
Yes, it is.
One moment while we get the exhibit.
I don't think Exhibit C is here.
Thank you. Your Honor, the prosecution requests that Exhibit C be admitted into evidence.
Any objection?
Objection, Your Honor, lack of foundation.
Your Honor, my witness just went through. We didn't have the exhibit up at the time, but she did answer the questions showing that she has knowledge of the area and where she was working at that time.
Thank you. Submitted?
Thank you, Your Honor. Now,
Hold on, I didn't rule yet.
Oh.
Submitted means nothing more to say on that, yes? Nothing more, yes?
nothing more.
Submitted?
May be heard, Your Honor.
What was that?
May be heard, Your Honor.
You may.
This witness would have no idea about the placement of the camera or the gate.
Objection sustained. You want to ask some more questions?
May I be heard real quick, Your Honor?
No?
Okay. Well, Ms. Russell, can you please describe what you were doing on the lines of April 29th, 2021?
At 8:30 a.m., I just climbed the power line pole, and I looked at the houses nearest to me, which were 46601 and 46603. I saw someone emerge from 46603, which is Kobe's residence, and walk toward Smith's mailbox, which was 46601, with a medium-sized wired cage. I later identified this person as Jamie Kobe.
And what did you notice next?
I noticed that they were also carrying gardening tools, and they kept glancing at the cage. I looked away and then saw them in front of Smith's mailbox.
And Ms. Russell, who was the person you saw emerge from the mailbox of 46601?
They're here with us today in the blue blazer at the end of the table.
Thank you, Ms. Russell. Your Honor, may the record reflect that the witnesses identified the defendant, Jamie Kobe.
The record will so reflect.
Thank you, Your Honor. And now, Ms. Russell, please describe the interaction you had with Smith on April 29th.
At 12 p.m., I saw someone emerge from 46601. I waved and then went back to work, turning around when I heard a loud scream come from Smith. Smith was stepping away from the mailbox with a snake attached to Smith's arm.
Thank you, Ms. Russell. You may return back to your seat. And what kind of snake attacked Smith?
It appeared to be a rattlesnake, but didn't have a rattle.
And what happened next?
Smith walked away from the mailbox in a daze and screamed, "Jamie!"
Objection, Your Honor, hearsay.
Your Honor, may I be heard?
Yes.
This would be an exception to the hearsay rules. This would be excited utterance. This was just moments after the victim, Eric Smith, was bitten by a rattlesnake.
Thank you. Objections overruled.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Russell, did you get to finish?
No, I did not. I told Smith to stay still, and Smith just sat on the ground near the mailbox.
And what actions after the attack did you take to help Smith?
I hit the snake with a breaker bar from my truck, and it died.
And what did the both of you do next?
Smith stood up and insisted he was fine, despite my suggestion to go see a doctor. He said he would tough it out by putting ice on his wrist. So I packed up for the day and left, and he went back inside of his home.
And thank you. And when you returned to work the next morning, what did you observe?
When I returned for work the next morning, I was shocked to see Smith lying face down in pajamas in the front of his home. The front door was wide open as if he'd walked out in a hurry and then just fell over. I went over and checked for a pulse, but got nothing. I then called 911, but got no response.
Miss Russell, did the police ever arrive on scene?
Yes, at 8:40 a.m.
And what did you tell the deputy once they arrived?
I told the deputy that I saw someone emerge from 46603, Kobe's residence the day before in the morning and that they stood in front of Smith's mailbox.
Thank you, Ms. Russell. No further questions, Your Honor.
Well, thank you. Cross-examination?
Yes, Your Honor.
Please proceed.
Good afternoon. You've been working as a line worker in Bridgely County for 15 years, correct? Yes. And on the morning of April 29th, 2021, you were working on a power line on Raptor Road, correct? I was working there, yeah. You saw someone exit 46603 Raptor Road, correct? I did. They appeared to be carrying a wired cage, right? Yeah, that's what I saw. And you don't recall if there was anything in this cage, correct? Like I've mentioned before, I was 100 feet down from where I was seeing this, so I didn't really get a good look, but I just saw the cage. You also saw them carrying some sort of tool bag, correct? Yes. But you couldn't identify the items in this tool bag either, correct? Because of the distance, right? I didn't see what was in it. This person you saw exit 4603 Raptor Road, you didn't see them even touch Smith's mailbox at all, correct? Well, I was looking away at the time because I was doing my job, so I didn't get to see what they were doing. I just looked away at that time. Now, after Smith was bitten by the Mojave rattlesnake, he screamed out the name Jamie, correct? Yes, that's what happened. And do you know why he did this? No, I don't. That's just what I heard. Could it be that Eric was merely asking for help?
Objection, Your Honor. Calls for speculation.
Maybe you heard, Your Honor? Yes.
Yeah.
I'm merely asking the perspective of the only eyewitness at the scene.
Okay, could it be that is calling for speculation? Objection is sustained.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Now, when you were working on the power line on Raptor Road, about how far away were you from Smith's house? 100 feet, but those were the nearest houses, and I had a clear view from where they were. You were busy working at the same time, right? Yes, that's what was happening. So it's possible that someone else could have approached the mailbox when you weren't looking, correct?
Objection, Your Honor. Calls for speculation.
Overruled.
That is true, but from what I saw, there was only one person, and I can identify them. Objection, Your Honor. Non-responsive, everything after but.
Overruled. The answer stands.
You weren't watching the mailbox the entire time you were working, correct? I wasn't, but I did glance at it a few times because of the spot where I was working at. Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
Thank you very much. Any redirect?
No redirect, Your Honor. May this witness be excused.
Yes, thank you very much. You are excused. Next witness, please.
Your Honor, at this time, the state calls Sheriff Tony Garrett to the stand.
Tony Garrett. Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly affirm that the testimony you're about to give will faithfully and truthfully conform to the facts and rules of the mock trial competition?
Yes.
Please be seated. Please state your full name, then spell your last for the court.
My name is Tony Garrett. My name is Tony Garrett, Garrett.
Thank you. For the convenience of this court, this witness is stated to be found on page 33 of the case packet.
Thank you. Counsel, please proceed.
Sheriff Garrett, can you please state your name and occupation for the court?
My name is Tony Garrett, and I've been a sheriff in Berners-Lee County for 20 years.
Thank you. Have you ever received any calls regarding a conflict between Jamie Kobe and Eric Smith?
Yes, I've received multiple calls which brought me to their apartment complex.
Okay. And how many times have you received a call regarding the conflict between the defendant and the victim?
I have received and responded to about a half a dozen calls. There was eventually a call in October where Smith had accused Kobe of breaking and entering into their house.
And what did you do following this accusation?
I decided to supply Smith with the video camera in order to film Kobe's backyard.
Thank you. What did you find when responding to your call on April 30th, 2021?
When I responded to a call, I found Smith lying face down. I conducted an inspection of the body and found rattlesnake bite marks on Smith's left wrist. The ambulance arrived shortly after I did, and Smith was soon pronounced dead.
And what did you do after Eric was pronounced dead?
I decided to return to the scene of the crime to further investigate it and question any potential witnesses.
What did you do upon arriving back at the scene?
I immediately questioned Angel Russell.
And what did you learn from Angel Russell?
I learned that Smith had been bitten at around 12 p.m. the day prior. Russell had also seen a person holding a medium-sized wire cage go stand near Smith's mailbox.
Thank you. I now should direct the court's attention to Exhibit B. Sheriff Garrett, can you please approach the exhibits?
Thank you.
Sheriff Garrett, can you see what has been marked as Exhibit B?
Yes, I can.
What is Exhibit B?
Exhibit B is a photograph that I took of Smith's mailbox with a slot opening at the top of the mailbox. It is located in front of Smith's residence of 46601 Raptor Road.
Is this photo a fair and accurate representation of Eric Smith's mailbox?
Yes, it is.
At this time, the prosecution requests for Exhibit B to be admitted into the evidence record.
Okay, thank you. Would the defense like to be heard? Any objection?
No objections, Your Honor.
Received into evidence.
Thank you. What did you do after questioning Angel Russell?
I decided to investigate Smith's mailbox.
And what did you learn upon examining Smith's mailbox?
I dusted the mailbox for any potential evidence of latent fingerprints.
Thank you. Please return to your seat. What did you do after your examination of the mailbox?
I decided to search Smith's home, and I found envelopes that contained rent checks from Smith's renters. Jamie Kobe's was not found amongst these.
What did you do after learning about these checks?
I decided to question all of Smith's renters.
And what were your conclusions as a result of these interviews?
That none had anything to do with the death of Eric Smith, with the exception of Jamie Kobe.
In your interview with Jamie Kobe, what new information did you learn from her?
I learned that Kobe had been guarding the morning of the attack. Kobe was also in possession of a humane animal trap, which they had with them when they went to drop off their rent check into Smith's mailbox.
Thank you. And now I should direct the court's attention to Exhibit E. Sheriff Garrett, please approach the exhibit. Sheriff Garrett, can you see this has been marked as Exhibit E?
Yes, I can.
What is Exhibit E?
Exhibit E is a photograph that I obtained from Kobe during my first interview with them. In it shows Kobe's humane animal trap.
Thank you. Is this photo a fair and accurate representation of Jamie Kobe's humane animal trap?
Yes, it is.
At this time, the prosecution requests to enter Exhibit E into the evidence record.
Thank you. Any objection?
No objections, Your Honor.
Thank you. Received into evidence.
Thank you. Sheriff Garrett, what did you do after your examination of Jamie Kobe?
I remembered the video camera that I helped Smith set up, so I decided to search that for any potential evidence.
I now should direct the court's attention to Exhibit A. Sheriff Garrett, can you see it's been marked as Exhibit A?
Yes.
What is Exhibit A?
Exhibit A is a photograph that I took from a video recording of Kobe's backyard. And it shows snake tongues as well as a smaller item which I could identify as a potential rattle of a rattlesnake.
Thank you. At this time, the prosecution requests to enter Exhibit A into the evidence record.
Any objection?
No objections, Your Honor.
Thank you. Exhibit A is received into evidence.
Sheriff Garrett, what information did you learn from your investigation of Eric Smith's camera?
I learned that Kobe had snake tongues as well as a potential rattlesnake rattle in their backyard.
Thank you. Please return to your seat. What did you do after reviewing the video evidence?
I decided to question Kobe again.
And what was your result of this interview?
Kobe did not provide me with any new information, but they did permit me to take a look around their house.
And what did you find in your investigation of Jamie Kobe's house?
From my investigation, I obtained knowledge regarding books regarding venomous snakes, a bottle of anti-venom, collected snake rattles from Mojave Desert rattlesnakes, animal handling gloves, snake-proof boots, a large canvas tool bag, and a long-sleeve T-shirt.
Thank you. Sheriff Garrett, whose fingerprints were found to have been on Eric Smith's mailbox?
Danny Emling's, Jamie Kobe's, and Eric Smith's fingerprints were found on Eric Smith's mailbox.
Well, why was Danny Emling not mentioned as a potential suspect?
Danny Emling had an alibi and was not in town when the murder occurred. This removed them from being a suspect.
Sheriff Garrett, I just have one final question. What were the end findings and conclusions of your investigation?
I'd come to the determination that Jamie Kobe was the sole suspect in the murder of Eric Smith and obtained a warrant for their arrest, which was served on June 3rd, 2021, charging the defendant with murder.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions at this time.
Thank you very much. Cross-examination?
Yes, Your Honor. You knew Eric Smith for 20 years, correct?
Correct.
Eric Smith was known throughout town for being rude to others, correct?
Yes, and the fact that he was on the town council.
You believe that Smith's only likable quality for those in town were the business policies that he promoted, correct?
Yes.
Last October, you responded to a call about a suspected break-in, correct?
That is accurate.
And this is when you provided Smith with a security camera to gather evidence based on the accusation that Kobe was the culprit, correct?
Yes, given their history, I thought it was a necessary action to take.
Kobe has made calls to your department regarding Smith, correct?
Yes, and so Smith has also done the same.
However, Kobe was never provided a complimentary security camera to gather evidence on Smith, correct?
That is accurate, but the allegations weren't as severe as breaking into someone's house. It was mostly noise complaints.
You lifted latent fingerprints off of Eric Smith's mailbox, correct?
Yes.
And whose prints were found?
Danny Emling's, Eric Smith's, and Jamie Kobe's fingerprints were found on Eric Smith's mailbox.
There is no method to determine the precise time when fingerprints were left at a scene, correct?
That is accurate.
Kobe gave you permission to search their home on May 2nd, correct?
Yes.
Now, during the search, you conducted a glance into Kobe's garage, correct?
Yes.
Angel Russell never saw Kobe place a snake in Smith's mailbox, correct?
No, but they were working at the time, so they weren't paying complete attention to what was going on.
Objection, Your Honor, non-responsive.
Have you heard, Your Honor?
Yes.
Your Honor, the question by opposing counsel asks for the witness to elaborate further, more than a simple yes or no answer, as there's more than a simple confirmation or denial to the question at hand.
Thank you. The court believes that the answer beyond no was non-responsive. The objection is sustained. You can ask more questions, and of course, counsel, you can address it on redirect.
Your Honor, the
proceed.
defense moves to strike testimony, everything after no.
I think I just said that after no was stricken.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Please proceed.
In fact, all Angel Russell saw was Kobe in the vicinity of the mailbox, correct?
Yes.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you very much. Any redirect?
Yes, Your Honor, briefly.
Please proceed.
Sheriff Garrett, whose fingerprints were found to have been on Eric Smith's mailbox?
Eric Smith's, Jamie Kobe's, and Danny Emling's fingerprints were found on Eric Smith's mailbox.
Could Eric Smith have been a suspect in this case?
No.
Could Danny Emling have been a suspect in this case?
No, she had an alibi.
So who was the only person whose fingerprints were found on the mailbox who could have possibly been a suspect in this case?
Jamie Kobe.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions at this time.
Thank you very much. Is this witness excused?
Witness be excused?
Yes, you are excused, and you can call your next witness.
Your Honor, the prosecution would like to call Terry Edwards to the stand.
Terry Edwards. Please raise your right hand. Listen to me, please. You solemnly affirm the testimony you're about to give will faithfully and truthfully conform to the facts and rules of the mock trial competition.
Yes.
Please be seated. Please say your full name, then spell your last name.
My name is Terry Edwards, spelled Edwards.
Thank you. Means in this court, this witness's statement can be found on page 40 of the case document.
Thank you. And before you proceed, I should have said this to the other witnesses. Could you be so kind as to kind of turn your little tent there towards the attorney's scores? It might help them a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you so much. Counsel, please proceed.
Thank you. Good evening, Miss Edwards.
Good evening.
Please provide the court some background information about yourself.
Well, I'm a retired lawyer, and I moved to the desert just a few years ago, to get away from it all.
And do you know the victim, Eric Smith?
Yes.
Do you know the defendant, Jamie Kobe?
Yes.
And how long have you known Jamie and Eric for?
Well, I've known Jamie and Eric for a long time, since we all live near each other. And I've lived down Raptor Road from Eric for about 10 years now. Eric and I were friends, and I've been there since Jamie and Jamie's mom moved in.
Thank you. And from what you observed, how would you describe Jamie and Eric's relationship?
Well, from what I observed, Jamie could be a real pain, but Eric was also not the easiest to get along with.
And can you recall any certain instances that showed the strain between Jamie and Eric's relationship?
Well, I saw Jamie throw animal droppings on Eric's porch once or twice.
Thank you. And now please describe your own personal relationship with Jamie.
Well, I had Jamie do some gardening for me about a year ago, but Jamie never finished planting. And I'd see Jamie around town, but Jamie always avoided me.
And now, Miss Edwards, how did you find out about the death of Jamie's mother?
Well, I ran into Jamie at the grocery store just a couple of days after Jamie's mom passed, and I decided I'd stop by the funeral and set aside our differences.
Thank you. And at the funeral, did you overhear Jamie say anything?
I heard Jamie telling people that this was it and that Jamie was...
Objection, Your Honor. Hearsay.
Your Honor, may I be heard?
Yes, you may.
This would be an admission to the hearsay rules. This would be admission by a party, as this is what Jamie Kobe is saying himself.
Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take your objection under advisement. We're going to hear the answer in full, then make your objection, okay?
Thank you, Your Honor.
Can you ask the question? Let's get the answer.
Yes, Your Honor. Miss Edwards, can you please just, did you overhear Jamie Kobe say anything?
I heard Jamie telling people that this was it and that Jamie was finally going to do it.
Your objection is hearsay. Your response was?
This would be admission to the hearsay rules. This is admission by a party because this is what Jamie Kobe is saying.
Thank you. Did you want to be heard on that?
Objection withdrawn, Your Honor.
All right. Then the answer stands. Thank you. Next
Thank you, Your
question.
Honor. And Miss Edwards, did you see anybody else at the funeral?
I saw Eric there as well.
And now please describe the commotion you saw and heard at the funeral.
I saw Jamie run outside the church and yell at Eric, saying, "Leave, you weren't invited here, my mother hated you."
And what happened next?
Well, I was concerned the situation would escalate into violence, so I stepped in and suggested they discuss it at another time. Jamie said never and hurried off into Jamie's car. Eric also drove off, and that was the last time I saw Eric.
And now, Miss Edwards, what did you do after the funeral?
I was concerned about Jamie, so I drove to Jamie's residence just to check up on Jamie, and I was surprised to find her gardening at dusk.
And what did you notice when checking up on Jamie?
I noticed Jamie standing in the front yard, so I rolled down my window to talk to Jamie when I heard Jamie yell, "I am going to kill him." I ignored the comment and suggested Jamie get some rest, but Jamie said she'd head to bed only after she finished something important she was working on.
Thank you, Miss Edwards. No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Cross-examination?
Yes, Your Honor. You had a close relationship with Eric, correct?
Yes, Eric and I were friends.
You believe that Eric was a hard person to get along with, correct?
Yes, he certainly had his ways about him.
And Eric often expressed their dislike towards Jamie Kobe, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
You were present at Jamie's mother's funeral, is that right?
Yes, I was in attendance.
Now, at this funeral, you and multiple others in attendance witnessed an argument between Kobe and Eric, correct?
Yes, I saw the confrontation occur.
After this funeral, you went to check up on Jamie, correct?
Yes, I was concerned for Jamie.
Upon your arrival at the Kobe residence, you found them in their garden, which you thought was odd, correct?
Yes, I did find it odd to find Jamie gardening at dusk.
You were aware of Kobe's reputation as a gardener firsthand due to the work that they had done on your own yard, correct?
Yes, although Jamie never finished planting, I found it suspicious because, well, snakes are more active at dusk, being myself.
Objection, Your Honor, non-responsive.
Sustained.
Would you like me to re-ask the question?
Yeah.
You were aware of Kobe's reputation as a gardener firsthand due to the work that they had done on your yard, correct?
Objection, Your Honor. Relevance.
Your Honor, this is relevant. It is setting foundation and is going to prove that Jamie Kobe gardening at dusk was not an unusual occurrence.
Thank you. Overruled. The witness can answer.
Although Jamie had never finished planting, yes, I was aware Jamie was a gardener.
You believe that Jamie was gardening at this time as a way to possibly recuperate after an emotionally trying day?
Well, yes, I was certainly trying to rationalize Jamie's behavior.
So that's a yes.
Yes.
You did not hear Kobe say that they were going to kill Smith specifically, correct?
No, just that Jamie was going to kill, quote, him.
I have no further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Any redirect?
No redirect, Your Honor. May this witness be excused.
Yes. And you have one more witness to call, yes?
Yes. At this time, the prosecution would like to call Dr. Charlie Dunn to this stand.
Dr. Charlie Dunn?
At this time, the prosecution would like to request a time check.
Hold on 1 second. Let's do what we're doing here, and then we'll do that next.
Okay.
Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly affirm that the testimony you're about to give will faithfully and truthfully conform to the facts and rules of the mock trial competition?
Yes.
Please be seated. Please
All
state your full name, then spell your last name before.
Dr. Charlie Dunn, D-U-N-N.
Thank you. For the convenience of this court, this witness's statement can be found on page 31 of the case package.
Thank you. Now, you want a time check?
Yes. At this time, the prosecution would like to request a time check.
Wonderful. Let's do that.
There's a total of 2 minutes and 30 seconds left for the prosecution and a total of 5 minutes and 2 seconds left for defense.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ready to proceed with your witness?
Yes, I am.
All right. Please do so.
Good evening, Dr. Dunn. Please state your name for the court and provide some background information about yourself.
My name is Dr. Charlie Dunn. I earned a bachelor's degree in biology at the University of Central California, and through this I became familiar with venomous and poisonous animals.
Thank you. Can you please elaborate on your forensic toxicology interest?
Yes, being a desert resident myself and around the animals, I became the current chief medical examiner for Bernsley County. I have seen 3 deaths due to venomous bites.
Thank you. And on May 31st, when you performed an autopsy on Eric Smith, what were your findings?
I observed that Smith had 2 visible puncture wounds on Smith's left wrist. The area was red and swollen, and it was clear that Smith had been bitten by a snake at this site. I also found that Smith had acute tubular necrosis and epicardial hemorrhaging, both of which are a direct byproduct of the snake's venom that bit Smith.
Were you able to examine the snake that bit Smith?
Yes, I was given the body of the snake to examine.
Please turn your attention to Exhibit D. Permission for the witness to approach the exhibit.
Please.
Thank you. Are you able to identify Exhibit D?
Yes, I am.
Is it a fair and accurate description?
Yes, the snake is 2 feet long and 2 inches wide at its widest point.
Thank you. At this time, the prosecution would like to request that Exhibit D be admitted into evidence.
Any objection?
No objections, Your Honor.
All right, it'll be received into evidence.
What were you able to observe from the dead rattlesnake?
From the dead rattlesnake, I observed, again, that it was 2 feet long and 2 inches wide at its widest point, as well as the snake was missing its rattle. This snake's venom is 16 times more potent than any other animal venom.
And is it normal for a rattlesnake to be in the desert without its rattle?
Based on my studies, it is extremely unlikely for a rattlesnake to be without its rattle. It would take an extreme amount of pressure to cause this.
Thank you, Dr. Dunn. You may return to your seat. Where is the Mojave rattlesnake usually found?
The Mojave rattlesnake can usually be found in a cool, accessible area such as a rock or crevice.
Is it possible that Smith died from
So
factors
just
outside?
1 second. Does that say stop? No, it was 30 seconds. Oh, okay, I saw stop. I got that wrong. No, that's okay. Please proceed. My apologies, counsel.
Thank you. It's all right. Is it possible that Smith died from factors outside of the snake bite?
No underlying health conditions would have changed the fact that the Smith's bite was lethal without immediate access to the antivenom.
Thank you. And Dr. Dunn, in your professional opinion, what was the cause of Smith's death?
Smith died from the bite directly from itself. The bite and the venom caused by the snake bite is what killed Smith.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions at this time.
Thank you very much. Cross-examination?
Yes, Your Honor. On May 31st, you began Eric Smith's autopsy, correct?
Yes.
And when performing this autopsy, you discovered the wound on the wrist and immediately determined it was a snake bite, correct?
That's correct.
Now I'd like to direct your attention to what has been entered into evidence as Exhibit D. Deputy Sheriff Tony Garrett informed you that this snake was inside Eric Smith's mailbox, correct?
That would be correct.
And in your witness statement, you mentioned that it is possible for snakes to squeeze into tight shaded spaces, correct?
I do mention that. I also mentioned that it is extremely unlikely for a snake to actually crawl into a mailbox on its own, however.
However, you do believe that it could be possible for a snake to squeeze into a mailbox, correct?
That is incorrect. As I've just stated, I believe that that's not possible.
Now, you're familiar with tools such as the wire humane animal trap, correct?
That is correct.
And you believe that Jamie Kobe could have been capable of using this tool to lure the snake out of the trap into the mailbox using a combination of tools accompanied by the usage of food, correct?
Yes, I do mention that luring food with a snake is a possible way to get it into a mailbox, yes.
Yet in your witness statement, you mention only ever seeing professionals such as reptile specialists perform such an act successfully, correct?
Correct, with the help of other tools such as gloves, snake tongs, and animal traps, all of which Kobe had access to.
Would you consider a small-town gardener on the same level of expertise
Objection, this question is speculation.
I didn't hear your objection.
Objection, this question is speculation.
Overruled.
Thank you, Your Honor. Would you consider someone who is a small-town gardener on the same level of expertise as a reptile specialist?
I mean, I feel like I would have to speculate on that. However, I would say that Jamie Kobe had access to all of the tools that reptile
Objection,
specialists
Your Honor,
have.
non-responsive.
Sustained.
Move to strike testimony.
Stricken.
Would you like me to re-ask the question?
Sure.
Would you consider someone who is a small-town gardener on the same level of expertise as a reptile specialist?
No.
Now, you have no snake-specific experience, correct?
That would be correct, but I am familiar with them.
And you've only ever seen one case where someone has died from a snake bite, correct?
Yes.
Would that case happen to be today's case?
No, I've mentioned that I have seen one snake bite, not specifically a rattlesnake bite.
And you've never studied herpetology like Dr. Tyler Clay has, correct?
I have not. I have my degree in biology.
So that's a yes?
It is a yes to I have my degree in biology, not in herpetology.
So this would make you about as experienced with snakes as a small-town gardener collecting rattles in the desert, correct?
Jamie Kobe has his degree in biology as well, and I have my degree in biology, so sure.
Now, you have no specific professional experience analyzing snake behaviors that would make your
Objection,
theories...
this question is argumentative.
As was the last one. Sustained. Next question.
And you have no professional experience analyzing snake behaviors, correct?
No, I am a desert resident and I have seen multiple snakes and their behaviors.
Objection, Your Honor, non-responsive.
Well, let me get the answer, first of all. Can you ask the question one more time very specifically?
And you have no professional experience analyzing snake behaviors, correct?
Analyzing snake behaviors, no, but I am familiar with snakes.
Is there an objection?
No, there's no objection.
Thank you. Next question.
That'll be all, Your Honor.
Thank you. And any redirect?
No, Your Honor. At this time, the prosecution would like to rest their case.
Thank you very much. You are excused. Thank you very much, Doctor. And the prosecution indicated that you rested, yes? Thank you very much. Is the defense ready to call their first witness?
The defense calls Danny Emling to the stand.
Danny Emling? Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly affirm the testimony you're about to give will faithfully and truthfully conform to the facts and rules of the mock trial competition? I do. Please be seated. Please say your full name, then spell your last name before.
Danny Emling, E-M-L-I-N-G.
Thank you. The convenience of this court, this witness's statement can be found on page 52 of the case packet.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Can you tell the court a little about yourself?
I am a resident of Berkeley County and rent a one-bedroom house across the road from Raptor Road. I also run a convenience store in town, which thankfully was able to stay in business during this tough and sudden pandemic.
What was your relationship with Jamie Kobe?
Jamie and I are tenants of Eric. A while ago, I was able to hire Jamie to reorganize my garden into a drought-tolerant garden. Jamie, being the very talented xeriscape artist that they are, was able to use a variety of cacti.
Objection, Your Honor. The witness is falling into a narrative.
You sustained. You can ask another question.
What was your relationship like with Eric Smith?
Eric wasn't a good landlord. Eric would take forever to make minor maintenance to my house. We had a few arguments in the past and would often offer rude and critical opinions that no one asked for.
Did you ever witness arguments between Eric and his other tenants?
I have witnessed quite a few arguments between Eric and his other tenants, yes.
Where do you drop your rent checks off every month?
My rent is always deposited in Eric's mailbox, just like his other tenants does.
Are there any physical obstructions that you can observe for this mailbox?
Well, the mailbox was out in the open with no locking it or anything protecting it from being accessed by anybody.
What was the relationship between Eric and Jamie?
Eric and Jamie lived very close to each other. I often witnessed arguments between them, mostly about rent or one of Eric's shenanigans that disrupted Jamie's life.
Were you present at Jamie's mother's funeral?
Yes, I was.
Was Eric there too?
Yes, Eric showed up to the funeral uninvited, which I just really couldn't believe, especially after what happened.
Is snake safety considered common knowledge amongst residents of Bernsey County that you have interacted with?
Of course, the residents that I've talked with all have knowledge that rattlesnakes like to crawl into tight spaces and will generally be on the lookout for them in public, which is something I also do.
Did you observe Jamie interact with nature?
Yes, while working on my garden, I noticed that Jamie loved animals and xeriscaping too. Especially for snakes, they were always careful and very respectful of them.
Relevance? Objection, Your Honor, relevance.
Do you want to be heard, or are you ready for my ruling on that?
May I be heard, Your Honor?
Yes.
This question is relevant because the defense is establishing that Jamie Kobe is incapable of using a snake as a murder weapon.
Thank you. Objections overruled. The answer stands. Next question.
What were your perceptions of Jamie's relationship with nature?
Well, like I said, Jamie really loved animals and loved doing xeriscaping work, and especially for snakes, and they were always just
Objection, Your Honor. Opinion testimony.
Objection what?
Opinion testimony.
Opinion testimony. Would you like to be heard on that?
Your Honor, whilst it is an opinion testimony, is admissible because this witness is testifying to the defendant.
Overruled. Excuse me. Objection is sustained. Next question.
Thank you, Your Honor.
I have no further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Cross-examination.
Yes, Your Honor.
Please proceed.
Good evening, Danny.
Good evening.
You are a neighbor of Jamie and Eric, correct?
That is correct. I live across the street from them.
And Eric is your landlord as well, right?
Yes, Eric is my landlord.
And you said that the rent was cheap as you were a tenant of Eric too, correct?
Of course, it's cheap and I love the desert, so it was the perfect combination.
Thank you. And all the tenants put their checks in Eric's mailbox, correct?
That is correct, yes.
And Jamie's mailbox is right next to Eric's, yes or no?
That is correct, yes.
And you went to Jamie's mother's funeral, correct?
Yes, I attended.
And immediately after the funeral, you left town to visit family, yes or no?
Yes, I left outside of the county to visit a family member.
And you were gone for a couple of weeks, correct?
Yes, I was gone for a couple of weeks.
And while you were gone, you received a call from Deputy Sheriff Tony Garrett about the death of Eric Smith, yes or no?
Yes, I did.
Objection, Your Honor. Argumentative.
Do you
Honor.
want to be heard?
Yes, I would like to hear it. I'm just simply asking the witness if she received a call while she was gone on vacation.
Your Honor.
The question as phrased was argumentative, and so the objection is sustained. The reason why is it's not for you to tell her how she has to answer the question yes or no. If you believe that she's being non-responsive or you have another objection, feel free to make it. Objection sustained. Next question.
Thank you, Your Honor. Did you receive a call from Deputy Sheriff Tony Garrett while you were gone on vacation?
Yes, I did receive a call.
And Eric Smith was found dead June 5th. You were returned home June 5th, and Eric Smith was found dead April 30th, correct?
That is correct, to my
So
knowledge.
you were gone and out of town the day that Eric Smith was bitten by a rattlesnake and killed, correct?
Objection, Your Honor. Relevance.
Your Honor.
Overruled. The witness can answer.
Would you like to answer the question?
Can you please repeat the question?
You were gone out of town and returned home on June 5th, and Eric Smith was killed April 30th, correct?
Yes, I had to go out of town to visit family member.
Thank you. Your Honor, no further questions.
Thank you. Any redirect?
Yes, Your Honor.
Please proceed.
Were there any physical obstructions that you could observe to Eric Smith's mailbox?
There were not. It was really out in the open. There was no locks, no gate blocking from it, and it seemed that anyone could have accessed it.
I have no further questions, Your Honor. May this witness please be excused?
Yes, thank you very much. And please call your next witness.
The defense calls Francis Yazzie to the stand.
Francis Yazzie. Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly affirm that the testimony you're about to give will faithfully and truthfully conform to the facts and rules of the mock trial competition?
Yes.
Please be seated. Please say your full name, then spell your last name.
Francis Yazzie, Y-A-Z-Z-I-E.
Thank you. For the convenience of this court, this witness's statement can be found on page 47 of the case packet.
Good afternoon. What do you do for a living?
Well, I used to own a restaurant called the Blue Agave that celebrated my culture and cuisine. Sadly, it was closed due to the pandemic, so now I sell landscape watercolor paintings, handmade jewelry, and belt buckles to make a living.
How do you know Jamie Kobe?
I know Jamie because around 10 years ago or so, she moved in half a mile away from my house. Ever since she moved in, we've become really good friends, especially during the pandemic.
How often would you see Jamie?
I see Jamie fairly often. She usually comes over to my house at around 4 p.m. after her mother has been cared for. Usually when she comes over, we talk and have some tea.
Did you ever go over to Jamie's house?
On a couple of occasions, yes.
And while at Jamie's home, did you ever witness anything out of the ordinary?
Well, on 2 occasions, the power was shut off by Eric. I told Jamie that this was probably harassment or illegal, but nothing really came from it.
Did this type of incident happen often?
Yes, this incident happened often. Even after I confronted Eric about the fact, he continued to shut the power off and demand Jamie for rent.
Was Eric involved in any way in the distribution of marijuana?
Yeah, it was pretty well known around Brinsley that he would
Objection,
sell.
Your Honor. This is improper character evidence.
Do you want to be heard?
Yes, Your Honor. This is an exception to the character evidence objection as it shows a pattern of the victim's character.
And would you like to be heard on that?
Yes, I'd also like to add that there is, this is objection on multiple grounds, as there is no evidence that the witness actually knows about this, and this is also improper character evidence, as the victim, Eric Smith, is not on trial today.
Thank you. I'll sustain the objection. Next question.
Thank you, Your Honor.
What did you do after you learned that Eric wasn't going to stop shutting off Jamie's electricity?
Well, I knew that Jamie's mother was sick, and I wanted to make sure she was okay, so the first thing I did was offer for Jamie's mother to stay at my house until Jamie could figure things out. Jamie did end up declining my offer because I didn't have the proper things to care for her.
Was Jamie close with her mother?
Yes, Jamie cared for her mother and was pretty close.
How did Jamie act after her mother's funeral?
After her mother's funeral, Jamie was a bit quiet and upset, to be expected. But after an hour or so of talking, because she came over to my house after the funeral around 4, she calmed down and even left my house laughing about how absurd an argument she had with
Objection,
Jamie
Your Honor.
was.
The witness is falling into a narrative.
Thank you. I'm going to sustain that objection. The answer stands. Please ask a new question.
Over the time you've known Jamie, have you gotten a good judgment of her character?
Of course I have. I've known Jamie for many years now.
So how did you react after hearing that Jamie was charged for Eric's murder?
Well, Jamie's a really kind and gentle person that I don't think would be capable of doing anything of the sort. So when I heard the news, I was just left in complete shock.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions at this
Thank you.
time.
Cross-examination.
Yes, Your Honor.
Please proceed.
Good evening. Good afternoon. And you live on Apter Road, the same street as Jamie and Eric, correct?
Yeah, I live around half a mile or so away from Jamie's house.
And Jamie was extremely knowledgeable of the desert and its environment, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And based on your observation, did Jamie and Eric have a contentious relationship?
Yeah.
And from what you observed, did it seem to get progressively worse?
They did have a bunch of arguments, but usually after they did calm down. But yeah.
Thank you. And is it correct that you're present on 2 occasions when Jamie's electricity was shut off?
Oh yes, I was present at his house on 2 occasions when the power was shut off.
And you and Jamie both agreed that was probably illegal and unfair for harassment, correct?
Yes, I told Jamie that. Yeah.
And Jamie said that Jamie was handling the situation, correct?
That is correct. Jamie did say that.
But you did offer to let Jamie's mother stay with you until Jamie's figured things out, correct?
I did offer for Jamie's mother to stay at my
Objection,
house.
Your Honor. Relevance.
Your Honor, may I be heard?
Yes.
I'm trying to lay the foundation to say that Jamie Kobe had other ways that he could provide care for his mother, but he had other methods that he wanted to use.
Thank you. Objection overruled.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Answer stands. Next
Thank you.
question.
And Jamie declined, saying they would be fine, correct?
Jamie did decline my offer because she wanted to stay close with her mother and make sure she did get the proper care she deserved.
Thank you. And on the day of the funeral, Jamie came over to your residence at around 4 p.m., seeming to be agitated, correct?
Yes, after the funeral, Jamie did come over so we can talk, and she did appear to be a bit upset.
Hold on, just 1 second. That's the 3rd time that happened. If you believe that the witness is being non-responsive, you say objection, non-responsive. You don't shut her up by saying thank you.
Okay, well then objection, non-responsive.
Sustained. Next
Thank you.
question.
Thank you, Your Honor. And Jamie left at around dusk, saying he wanted to go to their garden, correct?
Yes, Jamie did leave my house around dusk to garden.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
Thank you very much. Any redirect?
Yes, Your Honor. How did Jamie act after her mother's funeral?
When Jamie came over, she was a bit quiet and upset.
And what was your perception of Jamie's character?
Well, I knew that Jamie was a really kind and gentle person and creative too.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
Thank you very much. Is this witness excused?
Yes. May this
Thank,
witness be excused.
thank you. Please call your next witness.
Your Honor, before proceeding, the defense would like to respectfully request a time check on behalf of both sides.
Please, let's do that now.
There is a remainder of 8 minutes and 58 seconds left for the defense and 7 minutes and 16 seconds left for prosecution.
Thank you.
Before proceeding, I would also like to respectfully request that the bailiff have permission to, oh, I'm sorry, Your Honor, never mind. The Exhibit D is already shown. The defense would like to call Dr. Tyler Clay to the stand.
Let's do it.
Dr. Tyler Clay? Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly affirm the testimony you're about to give will faithfully and truthfully conform to the facts and rules of the mock trial competition?
Yes, I do.
Please be seated. Please state your full name, then spell your last for the court.
Dr. Tyler Clay, C-L-A-Y.
Thank you. For the convenience of this court, this witness's statement can be found on page 49 of the case document.
Dr. Clay, could you please tell the court a little about yourself?
Good afternoon. My name is Dr. Tyler Clay. I am the director of the Southland Zoological Museum in California. I earned my Bachelor of Science degree from the University of Central State in the year 2000. I also later on went to receive my master's as well as my PhD in biology with a specialization in herpetology, which is basically a branch of zoology mostly concerning reptiles, or in this case, snakes.
And what is your experience in the field?
Well, for many, many years, I did work as a naturalist at various national parks, and even now, as the director of the Zoological Museum, I've seen plenty of snakes and specifically snake bites.
At this point, I may even call myself the Snake Whisperer, which is also the title of my newest autobiography.
What is your involvement in this case?
Well, I have examined the medical examiner's report as well as the Mojave rattlesnake specimen itself. With this, I can concur that it was indeed a Mojave rattlesnake that has been Eric Smith.
Now I'd like to direct your attention to what has been entered into evidence as Exhibit D. Do you know what this is?
Yes, it appears to be a photograph of the Mojave rattlesnake with a missing rattle.
How often do individuals die of a Mojave rattlesnake bite?
It is actually not a very common occurrence for any individual to die of a rattlesnake bite, including a Mojave rattlesnake.
And what might happen if the bite were to go untreated?
Well, after a few hours, the person may experience symptoms such as difficulty breathing, loss of vision, muscle spasms, and in some rare cases, cardiac arrest may even be a result.
What exacerbates a Mojave rattlesnake bite?
Well, moving around causes the venom to course through the person's bloodstream a lot quicker, as well as wasting time attempting to look for or grab the snake. Now, I have seen other cases where the person has attempted to have somebody try to suck the venom out of the wound. Now, what this does is it creates a false sense of security, when in actuality, all it does is put the poor person sucking the venom out at risk of poisoning as well.
The witness has fallen into a narrative.
May I be heard, Your Honor?
Yes.
This witness just finished their answer.
And the last portion of it was a narrative. The court is not going to strike any of the testimony. It was a narrative. Objection sustained. I'll ask that the witness be more concise. Next question.
Thank you.
And what is your stance on the snake's missing rattle?
A missing rattle is actually a lot more common than some may think. The rattle is made up of a material called keratin, which is the same material that makes up a human fingernail, so it is definitely not that sturdy, especially considering that snakes shed twice a year by rubbing up against hard surfaces.
And could you describe the nature of the Mojave rattlesnake?
Yes, it's truly a fascinating snake, the most venomous one in North America even. They are most active between the months of April and October, and the Mojave rattlesnake is not particularly aggressive unless it is disturbed.
Objection, the witness has fallen into a narrative.
Do you want to be heard?
Yes, Your Honor. This is an expert witness, and they were simply describing the nature of the Mojave rattlesnake, which requires a brief description.
Thank you. Objection overruled. The answer stands. You can finish your answer briefly.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Was there more you needed to say on that briefly?
No, I finished my
Excellent.
answer. Thank you.
Next question.
Permission for the bailiff to approach the exhibits and rearrange it so Exhibit E is showing?
Sure.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Now, how do you feel about Dr. Dunn's theory that the rattlesnake was dumped in the mailbox?
I find Dr. Dunn's theory highly unlikely, as it would be a very difficult task and very dangerous as well for somebody who is not a professional in this field, even considering the tools used, including the humane animal trap.
Now, looking at Exhibit E, would this tool make handling the snake possible in this situation?
No, as I've stated, it's a very difficult task and would be very, very risky for somebody who is not a reptile specialist.
How common is it for snakes to squeeze into tight shaded spaces?
It's actually a very common occurrence for snakes to squeeze into tight shaded spaces. They do this for a number of reasons, either to get out of the sun, wait till it's darker out.
And how do individuals usually react in these situations?
Well, a person can very easily reach unknowingly into their mailbox, which would agitate the snake and cause it to attack.
Permission for the bailiff to approach the exhibits and rearrange so Exhibit B is showing?
Sure.
Thank you, Your Honor. Do you know what this is?
Yes, it appears to be a photo of Eric Smith's mailbox.
In your professional opinion, how could the snake have gone into the mailbox?
Well, the snake could have easily squeezed through the slit at the top of the mailbox, which I believe was 1 3/4 inches wide, or if somebody were to have left the door open, it could have easily, obviously, slipped through inside.
What were the dimensions of the snake?
Well, the snake was around 2 feet long, and at its widest point, it was 2 inches wide.
With these dimensions, could the snake still fit through the slot?
Oh, yes, easily. Snakes can sort of maneuver their bodies to squeeze into really tight spaces. And even at its narrowest point, it was much smaller than 2 inches, so definitely it could have gone in through the slit at the mailbox or even in smaller spaces.
That'll be all at this time, Your Honor.
Thank you. Cross-examination?
Yes. You agree with Dr. Dunn that the Mojave Desert rattlesnake is the most venomous rattlesnake in North America, correct?
Yes, that is a well-known fact.
You said in your witness statement that the Mojave rattlesnake is most active between April and October, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
And Smith was bitten in April?
Yes, I believe so.
And you and Dr. Dunn disagree that Smith's cause of death was from lethal envenomation?
Well, I can concur that it was the rattlesnake that has been Eric Smith, but I'm not too sure as to what the cause of death was.
Okay. And Smith did not seek the antivenom because of trends in the bite of delayed symptoms, correct?
Yes, a lot of people seem to think that the bite is not severe and they wait very long, so yes.
And yes or no, this is someone with extensive knowledge.
Objection, Your Honor. Argumentative as to yes or no.
Sustained. Can you rephrase the question?
Yes.
Thank you, Your Honor.
This is something someone with extensive knowledge of these species would have known.
No, not necessarily. Many desert residents know that the antivenom is widely available, as well as to be precautious when putting their hand into their mailbox.
Objection. The witness is being non-responsive. I asked if they would be able to testify that someone with extensive knowledge of the species would know that the snake has trends in the bite of delayed symptoms.
Thank you. Overruled. The question was responsive. Next question.
Is it possible to die from a snake bite alone?
Well, it is possible, however, it is extremely rare, as there could be various contributing factors like other underlying conditions.
Did you ever personally examine Eric Smith's body?
No, I only examined the medical examiner's report as well as the Mojave rattlesnake specimen.
Thank you. Please turn your attention to Exhibit A.
I believe we do not have the snake tongs. Oh, never mind.
Okay. Are you familiar with this exhibit?
Yes, they are the snake feeding tongs.
Please point to the item located near the tongs. In your witness statement, you said that this item is consistent with the size of a rattle, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
You agree with Dr. Dunn saying that the best way to handle venomous snakes is to use snake feeding tongs and gloves to avoid injury, correct?
Well, I wouldn't say that would be the best method, but yes, usually these tools are very commonly used by reptile specialists.
Thank you. And these items were found in Kobe's residence, correct?
I'm afraid I cannot testify to that. I'm not.
Objection. According to stipulation 5, it states that the expert witnesses would have reasonable knowledge of the fact stipulation, and considering that they have testified to using these tools as an animal specialist, they should know that from this fact stipulation, these would be located in Kobe's residence.
Your Honor, this witness was not a part of the investigation into Kobe's residence, so they may not have proper knowledge of where exactly in the residence this was found, or that this was indeed found in the residence.
Thank you. The court is going to The court is going to overrule the objection as it was phrased. If you believe that you can properly impeach this witness with something in the packet, feel free to do so. Objection overruled.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay. Are you unable to answer the question?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Then thank you. No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you very much. Any redirect?
Yes, Your Honor. Did you examine Dr. Dunn's report?
Yes, I examined the report.
And did you agree with Dr. Dunn's theories on how the snake ended up in the mailbox?
I disagreed with Dr. Dunn's theory that the snake could have been dumped in the mailbox for various reasons, like it was very dangerous and it could have squeezed in on its own.
Would tools such as the snake feeding tongs make snake handling possible?
Only for reptile specialists. Somebody who is not a professional in this field could very easily get injured.
Thank you. Nothing further, Your Honor. May this witness be excused?
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you, Doctor. And counsel, do you have a final witness to call?
Yes, but before proceeding, the defense would like to respectfully request a time check on behalf of both sides.
Thank you. Let's do that right now.
There is a total of 3 minutes and 41 seconds remaining for defense and 4 minutes and 46 seconds remaining for prosecution.
Excuse me, Your Honor, there's a discrepancy in the time.
Okay, I'm going to have the two of you chat that out, and then you can tell me what's going on. And while they're doing that, I want to just let everyone know, I think we've all been doing a wonderful job with our masks. I am responsible for the health and safety of everyone in this room right now. So if we could just take a moment to check our masks and make sure that our mouths and noses are, not with us. Thank you. Have we resolved the discrepancy? And so what is it?
The prosecution has 4 minutes and 48 seconds, and the defense has 4 minutes and 2 seconds.
And you agree? Yes. All right, thank you. I commend you both for working that out. That's exactly as it should happen. Next witness.
The defense would like to call Jamie Kobe to the stand.
Thank you.
Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly affirm the testimony you're about to give faithfully and truthfully, conform to the facts and rules of the mock trial competition? Please be seated. Please say your full name, then spell your last name in court.
Jamie Kobe, C-O-B-E-Y.
Thank you. For the convenience of this court, this witness's statement can be found on page 42 of the case file.
Ms. Kobe, could you please tell the court a little about yourself?
Yes, my name is Jamie Kobe, and I'm currently a resident of Burnsley County. I've lived in one of Eric Smith's properties with my mother for about 10 years now.
What was your relationship with Eric Smith?
Well, Eric and I weren't necessarily the best of friends. Sometimes we got into arguments, but we always ended up calming down eventually.
How would you handle these arguments?
Well, sometimes the police would get involved, and other times I admit that I did act childishly. However, I always realized the extent of my mistakes and obviously never repeated them again.
Were you your mother's caretaker?
Yes, she was old and had pre-existing health conditions, so I was responsible for taking care of and supporting her.
At this time, what was your occupation?
Well, I used to work for a restaurant called the Blue Agave, but unfortunately it shut down due to the pandemic. So instead I tried to step up my work as a Xeriscaper.
Objection, Your Honor. This witness has fallen into a narrative.
Overruled. If you could briefly answer the question.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. So as I was saying, I had tried to step up my work as a Xeriscaper, but unfortunately people couldn't afford my services, so that didn't really help either.
Could you afford your rent?
Often I couldn't afford my rent, but whenever I did have any extra money to pay Eric in whatever amount I could, I did, just to show that I was still appreciative of him.
Did you ever hear of any illegal activities taking place on Eric Smith's properties?
Yes, I was aware of the fact
Objection,
that...
Your Honor. Relevance.
May I be heard, Your Honor?
No. Overruled on those grounds. The witness can answer.
Your Honor, we also like to raise an objection as to improper character evidence.
Okay. Now we're in the ball field. Do you want to respond to that?
Yes, Your Honor. This is an exception to the improper character evidence objection, as it goes to show a pattern of the victim's character and their reputation within the community, as well as their interactions with others within the community.
Do you want to be heard?
Yes, Your Honor. The victim is not the one on trial here. Jamie Kobe is, as well as the phrasing of the question as to a pattern of illegal activity is vague and ambiguous and does not go to show anything about the victim.
Objection sustained. Next question.
Did you blame Eric Smith for your mother's death?
I didn't blame Eric Smith for my mother's death because, as I had said, she was old and had pre-existing health conditions. I had known it was...
Objection, Your Honor. This witness has fallen into a narrative.
No, the witness hasn't. The witness can answer. Overruled.
Thank you, Your Honor.
As I was saying, she had pre-existing health conditions, and I was aware of the fact that it was only a matter of time. I just hadn't expected it so soon, so she was really the top of my priorities.
And how did you react when you saw Eric Smith at the funeral?
When I saw Eric Smith at the funeral, I was surprised because we weren't friends, so I hadn't invited him and I didn't expect him to be there.
After the funeral, where did you go?
After the funeral, I went to my neighbor Frances Yazzi's house because we're friends, so I trusted her to help me calm down before I went back to my house to do some gardening, which is always really relaxing for me too.
Is gardening a main hobby of yours?
Yes, I've been gardening for quite a while, so I would say I know quite a bit about different techniques, which is also why I own a variety of tools.
Why did you purchase these tools?
I purchased these tools because I'm also a member of various animal rights organizations, and it's always been my priority to handle the things I interact with the utmost care and respect.
Now I'd like to direct your attention to the morning of April 29th. Did you go anywhere the morning of April 29th?
Yes, the morning of April 29th, I went down to my landlord's mailbox, Eric Smith, to drop off my rent payment, which was an envelope containing $48 cash.
At this time, did you touch the mailbox?
Well, it was a while ago, so I don't remember touching the mailbox in specific. I'm sure I have at some point in the past. All I know is that I definitely dropped off my payment.
And did you put a snake in the mailbox?
Of course not.
Now, did you do anything of note on April 30th?
Your Honor, vague and ambiguous as the term of note.
Sustained.
I can rephrase, Your Honor.
Please?
Did you go anywhere the morning of April 30th?
Yes, on the morning of April 30th, I went down to our local town hardware store and put up a sign saying that I was selling my gardening tools.
Why did you sell your tools?
I sold my tools because I needed money to pay for my mother's funeral expenses. I didn't have a stable job, so really anything at that point helped.
And did you kill Eric Smith?
Of course not.
Your Honor, this calls for an opinion testimony. May I further elaborate?
Okay.
The phrasing the question as to the term kill requires a medical testimony as for the actual cause of death of Smith, as this has been contested by the defense in today's trial.
Thank you. Overruled. The witness can answer.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Of course I didn't kill Eric Smith. Just because we had our differences, it doesn't mean that I would ever wish harm upon him, let alone imagine to do it myself.
That'll be all at this time, Your Honor.
Thank you very much. Cross-examination?
Yes, Your Honor. Good evening, Jamie Kobe.
Good afternoon.
You are a tenant on one of what was Eric Smith's properties, correct?
In Burnsley County, yes, I did live in one of Eric Smith's properties.
And on April 22nd, your mother passed away, yes?
Yeah, that did happen.
You now know and knew at the time that Eric Smith shut the power off, causing your mother's death.
Objection,
right?
Your Honor. Compound question.
Can you read the question? Ask the question one more time.
You now know and knew at the time that Eric Smith caused your mother's death.
Sustained.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Break it up.
You now know that Eric Smith caused your mother's death due to a lack of power due to oxygen, correct?
Well, that was really a circumstantial occurrence. I mean,
Objection, Your Honor. This witness is non-responsive.
May I be heard, Your Honor?
Hold on. I'm just going to play this back in my mind. The objection's overruled. The witness can briefly answer the question.
Thank you, Your Honor.
well, my power being shut off that day was just an unfortunate occurrence. Really, anything could have caused my mother's oxygen machine to shut down, and of course, she had health conditions. So, as I had said, I knew it was a matter of time. It just hadn't expected it at that moment.
On page 44, line 32 and 33, you said, I did not blame Erica entirely for her mom's death. She had been very, very ill. So it would be fair to say that you did partially blame her, correct?
Well, of course, my situation with Eric was difficult. We had gotten into arguments in the past, but really, my
Objection,
mother...
Your Honor, this witness is non-responsive.
May I be heard, Your Honor?
Yes.
They're asking my witness if they blamed someone for their mother's death. This is a question where the defendant, or Ms. Kobe, should be allowed to elaborate on their answer, as it is not so black and white.
Thank you. So here's my ruling. You very appropriately impeach the witness with some other testimony. The witness is able to answer you, and so the objection's overruled.
Thank you, Your Honor.
The witness can briefly finish their answer.
As I was saying, my situation with Eric was difficult. At the time, my mother was at the top of my priorities. Eric wasn't really at the front of my mind.
At your mother's funeral, you had a confrontation with Eric Smith, yes?
Yes, that is correct.
And and after this confrontation, when you returned home, you said, quote, I am going to kill them, yes?
When I had said that, I was referring to some small snails I had found in my garden. It was an emotional day. It just kind of slipped out. Of course, I didn't actually mean it, but I wasn't referring to a person.
But the words that you were going to kill them did leave your mouth, yes?
Objection, Your Honor, asked and answered.
Overruled. It was asked, and it was very circuitously answered, and so it's appropriate for the attorney to ask the question again. Please answer it.
As I had said, yes, the words them did leave my mouth, but it wasn't in reference to a person.
You own the tools to capture a rattlesnake, correct?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that, please?
You own the tools to capture a rattlesnake, correct?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
You own the tools to capture a rattlesnake, correct?
Well, of course, any person who would need to handle a rattlesnake would need to have...
Objection, Your Honor, non-responsive.
Sustained.
I suppose so.
Thank you. Please direct your attention to Exhibit A. The snake tongs in this exhibit are yours, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Please direct your attention to Exhibit E. The humane animal trap in this exhibit is yours, correct?
That is correct.
Please return to your seat. You do own a hunting knife, correct?
Among various other tools, yes.
Okay. It would be safe to say that you know a great deal about the Mojave Desert rattlesnake, yes?
Well, I had to have some knowledge as to different things I could encounter in my work in the desert. Like the
Objection, Your
Mojave
Honor.
rattlesnake.
This witness is non-responsive.
May I be heard, Your Honor?
Yes.
This witness had not yet finished their answer.
And this witness has been not responsive in finishing the answer. Objection sustained.
Move to strike the testimony, Your Honor.
Stricken, please answer the question.
Yes, that is correct. I did have a humane animal trap.
No, so do you know a great deal about the Mojave Desert rattlesnake, yes?
As I had said, yes, I do have some knowledge of the Mojave rattlesnake because I would need to know of.
Objection, Your Honor. This witness is non-responsive.
She's getting it out, but get it out quickly, please.
Okay. As I was saying, I do have some knowledge of the Mojave rattlesnake because, again, it is a possibility I interact with them during my work, so I had to have some knowledge as to how to proceed.
So then you know just how deadly and potentially lethal a Mojave Desert rattlesnake is, yes?
Of course, many snakes are deadly, and a Mojave rattlesnake is widely known, so various people would know that.
And you did know that Eric Smith had a pre-existing condition which left him vulnerable, correct?
Well, I had some basic knowledge of his health conditions, but nothing too in-depth.
Well, you did know that Eric Smith suffered from high blood pressure, had a kidney condition, and suffered from congestive heart failure, correct?
Objection, Your Honor. Compound question.
Overruled. There are three parts to that question, but it is one.
As I had said, I had some knowledge of them, but nothing as to their specifics.
So you did know that Eric Smith had those specific conditions, yes?
Of the conditions, but not about them, yes.
Thank you. You were at the mailbox the morning that Eric Smith was attacked, yes?
I had gone to drop off my rent payment.
And you were carrying a canvas tool bag and a humane animal trap when you were at the mailbox, yes?
I was returning from my garden. I was carrying some materials that I use on a daily basis.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions at this time.
Thank you very much. Any redirect?
Yes, Your Honor. Before proceeding, I would like to respectfully request a time check.
Sure.
There's a total of 1 minute and 12 seconds remaining.
Thank you. Please proceed.
Why did you own your gardening tools?
I own my gardening tools because obviously I'm a xeriscaper, so I needed different materials I could use in my work as a desert. And again, I am also a member of animal rights organizations, so as I've said, it's always been my goal to treat the different things that I interact with the utmost care and respect, hence the tools, to ensure both of our safeties.
Your Honor, this witness has fallen into a narrative.
Overruled. Next question.
Thank you, Your Honor. And did you blame Eric Smith for your mother's death?
At the time, of course, as I had said, our situation was challenging. I mean, my mother was at the top of my priorities. She had just died. I didn't have a job. I needed money to pay for her funeral expenses, and I had to handle all of that. Yeah.
Are you a reptile specialist?
No, I'm just a xeriscaper. I've earned some certificates for my plants, but I don't really have an all-encompassing knowledge of desert life.
That'll be all, Your Honor. May this witness be excused?
Thank you very much. Go ahead and have a seat. You are excused.
And at this time, the defense rests.
Thank you very much. I think at this point we're going to be ready for closing arguments, but before we do that, just give me a moment. I want to look at my notes here. Is prosecution ready to proceed with closing argument?
Yes, we are, but before we would like to proceed, I would like to request a time check.
Let's get it for both sides, please.
There's a remainder of 5 minutes and 32 seconds left for prosecution and 5 minutes and 30 seconds left for defense.
Thank you very much. Please proceed with your closing.
Thank you. The people's burden of proof is to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that 1, Jamie Colby committed a murder in a willful, deliberate, and premeditated manner, and 2, Jamie Colby acted with express malice. Tonight, the people have met their burden. We must first ask, what motive would Jamie Colby have to intentionally kill Eric Smith with a Mojave Desert rattlesnake planted in her mailbox? Well, the answer lies in 10 years' worth of a building feud between the tenant, Jamie Colby, and landlord, Eric Smith. The tension met its breaking point when Jamie, after repeatedly failing to pay her rent, had her electricity turned off, resulting in her mother dying of cardiac arrest. Jamie was distraught and furious over Eric's accused involvement. And after years of built-up grievances, this was the act that towed the line, leading Jamie to one solution: to utilize her environment and plan an attack on Eric Smith. After arriving home, Jamie took the opportunity and harbored a venomous rattlesnake and planted it in Eric's mailbox lying in wait. The next day, when Eric went to get the mail, she was attacked, resulting in her body being found dead, face down on her lawn the following morning. According to California Penal Code 189 degrees of murder, a murder conducted using poison is defined as murder of the first degree. Considering the defendant obtained and utilized a venomous rattlesnake and Eric Smith's cause of death was from lethal envenomation, the prosecution argues a verdict of murder to the first degree. According to CalCrim 521, there are 3 requirements for a person to be guilty of first-degree murder. 1, the murder was willful. On April 29th, Angel Russell testified to identifying the figure walking towards the mailbox carrying a humane animal trap and canvas tool bag as Jamie Kobe. Jamie is an avid animal lover and gardener, knowing extensively about snakes and having the knowledge that a bite from the Mojave Desert rattlesnake is deadly if left untreated. From a prior relationship, Jamie was knowledgeable about Eric's health and pre-existing kidney condition, which would only be exacerbated by a lethal bite. Further, from her mother's death, Jamie knew that the nearest hospital containing the antivenom used to combat the snake's poison was 45 minutes away. 2, the defendant acted deliberately. In a video obtained from Deputy Garrett Smith's security system, the system was triggered by movement in Kobe's backyard at 7 a.m., just hours before Eric was bitten. On Deputy Tony Garrett's way out of Eric's house, she discovered snake protective gear, gloves, boots, and a shirt sitting together on a table in Smith's garage. Jamie's snake tongs, humane traps, and other tools were bought only after the attack. In a further investigation, Jamie Kobe's fingerprints were the only viable ones found on the mailbox. The defense would like you to believe that at this time, Jamie's reason for being at the mailbox was to merely drop off her rent check. Yet after inspecting Eric's residence, Deputy Garrett did find rent checks, but none of which belonging to Jamie. Jamie even admitted that she would only pay rent a little, but scarcely during the pandemic. 3, the defendant acted with premeditation. First, on April 28th, after the argument at the funeral, Jamie was seen visibly angry at her residence by Terry Edwards. From Terry's observations, Jamie was emotionally drained and even stated, "I am going to kill him," before specifically stating her need to finish something important. Second, in Jamie's testimony, it is stated that during this time, he was merely gardening at dusk. Yet Jamie was intentionally obtaining a rattlesnake during dusk, their most active time, planning to use it to kill Smith. Third, the video of Jamie's backyard, obtained from the sheriff's department, features snake tongs and an object located near the tongs that appears to be the missing rattle. This would indicate that the rattle was removed prior to the attack, leaving no question of premeditation. The defense would like you to believe that the Mojave snake's rattle merely fell off while slipping into the tight mailbox. Yet after inspecting the scene, Sheriff Garrett found no evidence of a rattle or anything indicating one was ever there. Moving on to the second count. According to California CalCrim 520, a person committed express malice if they unlawfully intended to kill. This requirement has been proven through the charges of first-degree murder. The prosecution argues that the judge finds the defendant guilty of first-degree murder. However, if it is not found, we argue you find the defendant guilty of manslaughter because of the passionate fight that occurred before the attack. Jamie Kobe desired to avenge her mother by taking the life of Eric Smith. And yet today, the prosecution has found that revenge is not a foolproof plan. Tonight, the people have proven beyond a reasonable doubt that Jamie Kobe is guilty of first-degree murder with malice aforethought. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is the defense ready to proceed with their closing argument?
Yes, Your Honor.
Please proceed.
Good evening, Your Honor. My name is Shan McGee, and tonight I'm defending my client, Jamie Kobe. Tonight, my team and I have called 4 witnesses to the stand to testify to Jamie Kobe's innocence. These witness testimonies, along with our cross-examination of the prosecution's witnesses, has shown that the prosecution has failed to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Ms. Kobe is guilty of the charges being brought against them tonight. Eric Smith and Jamie Kobe did not get along. This is Ms. Kobe's motive, according to the people. While they had their arguments and disagreements, Jamie Kobe was not the only one who had this relationship with Eric Smith. As Danny Emling testified tonight, Eric Smith could often be seen arguing with all of his other tenants when they would stop by his residence 46601 on Raptor Road. Eric Smith had a reputation for being rude, as the prosecution's own witness, Deputy Sheriff Tony Garrett, testified tonight. In fact, the only redeeming quality of Eric Smith that the deputy sheriff could list was Eric Smith's business policies. Smith also had a reputation for dealing drugs to residents of Bernson County, including minors. I think we can all agree that being the county's resident drug dealer for children is sure to create some enemies. So if disagreement and dislike are the motives we are searching for tonight, then you would have to put a majority of Bernsley County's residents on trial. Now, the prosecution would like to paint Jamie Kobe as some sort of snake expert with extensive knowledge on snakes. The only expert in this courtroom with extensive knowledge on snakes is Dr. Tyler Clay. The prosecution's expert witness, Dr. Dunn, presented a bunked-up theory that Jamie Kobe, a small-town gardener, lured the Mojave rattlesnake into a cage, cut off its rattle, and then once again lured it, this time with food, into Eric Smith's mailbox. Of course, Dr. Dunn, who has no snake-specific experience, believes this absurd theory to be possible, as they have no expert knowledge on the behaviors and capabilities of the Mojave rattlesnake. Only a professional, such as a reptile specialist, could perform such an act successfully, which Dr. Dunn agrees with tonight. Now, according to Dr. Tyler Clay, what happened on April 29th was most likely an entirely naturally occurring event. Not only have they seen multiple cases where a snake has snuck into a tight space, such as a mailbox, but they also testified tonight that it is very common for snakes to naturally lose their rattles in the desert. They've also seen multiple cases where snakes have snuck into someone's mailbox and attacked the person reaching inside because they felt threatened. And multiple residents of Bernsley County testified tonight that snake safety is common knowledge amongst the residents, and that many practice caution when reaching into tight spaces such as mailboxes. Your Honor, according to CalCrim 224, before you may rely on circumstantial evidence to find the defendant guilty, you must be convinced that the only reasonable conclusion supported by the circumstantial evidence is that the defendant is guilty. According to Dr. Tyler Clay, the most plausible conclusion that can be drawn from the prosecution's circumstantial evidence is that the snake entered into Eric Smith's mailbox entirely on its own. What happened on April 29th and the death that followed, while unfortunate, was an entirely naturally occurring event that had absolutely nothing to do with Jamie Kobe and could have been completely avoided with both proper caution and proper medical care, like the widely accessible antivenom. From the lack of thorough investigating, like the deputy sheriff's quick glance into Jamie Kobe's garage, to the multiple plausible conclusions that can be drawn from the people's circumstantial evidence, this is anything but a clear-cut case of murder. Ms. Kobe was a kind and caring member of this community who wouldn't hurt a fly, and she blamed absolutely no one for her sick mother's death. She was aware of her mother's old age and health conditions and knew that, unfortunately, her death would eventually come to pass. She made peace with this fact long before the events of April 22nd and just wants to mourn her mother's death and celebrate her life in peace. She's a caring member of this community who is a part of multiple animal rights groups and would never harm a snake, let alone a human being. Your Honor, according to CalCrim 224, before you may find Ms. Kobe guilty, you must be convinced that the only reasonable conclusion supported by the people's circumstantial evidence is that Ms. Kobe is guilty. The prosecution has failed to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Ms. Kobe is guilty of both first-degree murder and voluntary manslaughter. They have failed to meet their burden of proof. What happened on April 29th was an entirely naturally occurring event. It was a tragic accident that was caused by Mother Nature and a situation out of our control. I ask you, Your Honor, to not let Jamie Kobe become yet another victim of this tragedy and find Ms. Kobe not guilty on both charges of first-degree murder and voluntary manslaughter. Thank you for your time, Your Honor.
Thank you very much. Does the prosecution have a rebuttal?
Yes, I do.
Please proceed.
Opposing counsel has presented a story of speculative facts and improper character evidence about what they believe to have occurred with this case today. However, let's look at what we do know from the facts provided today. Angel Russell identified the figure holding the wired cage, which was large enough to transport the snake, walking to the mailbox and standing around it as Jamie Kobe. And Jamie's fingerprints were the only ones found on the mailbox that could have been a culprit. The other belonging to Danny Emling, who was out of town, and the other fingerprint belonging to the victim, Eric Smith, who was deceased. And finally, it is unreasonable to assume that a snake would naturally seek solace in a mailbox. The slot was barely bigger than itself, and it was not cool, and it was not easily accessible, and there are no witnesses who have testified to seeing the snake slither up and go into the mailbox. For these reasons, the prosecution respectfully requests that you find Jamie Kobe guilty of first-degree murder, since all four requirements have been met with express malice. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And does the defense have a rebuttal?
Yes, Your Honor.
Please proceed.
The prosecution's only eyewitness, Angel Russell, testified tonight that they were unable to see Jamie Kobe interact with the mailbox at all. They never saw Jamie Kobe touch the mailbox, and even testified tonight that they were too far away to see the details like what Jamie Kobe was holding. And the expert witness tonight, Dr. Tyler Clay, testified that it is very common for snakes to squeeze into tight shaded spaces such as mailboxes. They have seen multiple cases, in fact, where this has happened, where the snake has even attacked the person reaching inside because they felt threatened. And they testified tonight that this behavior would be very similar to the behavior of a Mojave rattlesnake. Now, Your Honor, the prosecution has failed to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Ms. Kobe is guilty of both first-degree murder and voluntary manslaughter. They have failed to meet their burden of proof. The events of April 29th and April 30th have already taken one victim. Do not let Jamie Kobe become yet another victim of this tragedy. And please find her not guilty on both charges of first-degree murder and voluntary manslaughter. Thank you for your time, Your Honor.
Thank you very much. So the court has heard the evidence in this case. The court has heard the closing arguments as well. I'm going to give the attorney scores a little bit more time to fill out their forms. I'll check in with you on that in a moment. I'm also going to give the teams some time to come up with their MVP names and whatnot, but I don't want to hear those yet either. To allow for the attorney scores to have a little bit more time before my verdict, I would like to thank everyone in this room. First of all, what a round of applause for all the participants tonight. Phenomenal job. Great job, and I mean my lawyers, the witnesses, the bailiffs, our scorekeepers, everyone. Our timekeepers, everyone. To our coaches, our attorney coaches, our teacher coaches. Can we give them a round of applause? Great job. Because as I recall, the attorney coaches probably don't get paid anything, and the teachers certainly don't get paid enough. So I really, really thank you all for what you've done. I don't know if we have any parents in the room or that are watching or going to be watching it later, but these young folks are here with us today because of the supportive family. Whatever that means, moms, dad, older siblings, grandmas, grandpas, round of applause for all of them, because we have some wonderful, bright people here. And I would be remiss if I didn't thank the Stanislaus County Office of Education, back of the room over there, for all the work that you've done over these years to make this what I consider to be the crown jewel of your programs. A round of applause for them. And frankly, when I got an email, about a month ago, 3 weeks ago, saying, would you be willing to do this in person? I really wanted to be here in person, but I was kind of like, I don't know, right? Because we are doing things over at the courthouse that in any other time would be considered to be cruel and unusual, as far as continuing trials and keeping people detained and doing things remotely. So I'm still of the perspective that less is more right now. So, and then like I said, a little bit after having that conversation, I literally found out I was positive myself, and I only tested negative for the first time a couple days ago. So to me, this was a gamble to do this, but it was a gamble that was well done. I think we're all safe, and frankly, it's just great to be in the same room with all of you. Let me check in with my attorney scores and see how they're doing. You were last. Let me ask you first. Got a thumbs up. Ms. Ratliff, you're still calculating? Okay. We got a thumbs up. Mr. Leggero? Thumbs up? Okay, they're good to go. And I just got a piece of my mask, and I'm having a mask malfunction. Give me a moment. Okay, so I am now going to render my verdict. I will let you know that, again, my verdict isn't the score. It is, however, my verdict. I am profoundly of the opinion that closing arguments matter. I believe that in mock trial competition. I believe it in real court. I've done both a lot as a lawyer and as a judge. I think we had great closing arguments here today. However, this is an exception to the rule. Let me tell you why. I was very impressed with the defense closing argument. Frankly, I thought you did a phenomenal job. But I want to go back to one piece of the evidence, and that was the redirect of, I believe it was Sheriff Garrett. And So then, you know, could this person have done it? No. Could this person have done it? No. Could that person have done it? No. So it really could have only been the defendant. I mean, that was so effectively done, and having considered all of the evidence, the court finds the defendant guilty of first-degree murder. Remand her, take her into custody. We'll see her in, what, 25 years, something like that, okay? I'm kidding, of course. You're not actually going to jail. And so I am finding the defendant guilty as charged. Okay, now at this point, what I'd like to do is hear from the attorney scorers. If you could briefly introduce yourselves and give us some comments, and we'll pass the microphone. And because we started last, we're going to start first with Mr. Wagner because we had him last earlier.
So I think both sides here did a great job in this. I really appreciated seeing it, and I had some specific comments. And some of these may be things that are, this is my first experience with mock trial. So I never did this when I was a student. I probably should have. I've never scored it before. And so I really liked seeing how this works. And I'm not sure if this is a thing or not, but it did seem with the leading questions, which obviously being a defense attorney is something that I focus on, a lot of you are asking them with the word correct or yes or no at the end of it. And in the real world, and unless there's a mock trial rule that I'm not aware of, that's not something that you have to do. And so I want you to think about going forward, because obviously one of these teams is going on to a statewide competition, correct? Yeah. You don't actually have to do that. You can ask the question and leave that there, and it leaves a little more room. And the fact that that's my first takeaway from this in terms of a critique means that you all did exceptionally well. Because that's talking about the nitty-gritty of how you ask a question, which is something that I deal with in terms of training our new lawyers after they've been doing this for some time. I really liked the defense opening, particularly because the first two sentences of it are an opening that I've given, I wrote, I've given this opening. That was kind of cool to see. And I also thought the prosecution did a great job with their opening as well, and with their closing. It really is all about closing and opening because the facts are what they are. So I think you all did a great job, and I'll pass this along.
Thank you. And before you pass it on, I want to say Mr. Wagner was recently, within the last year or so, made like one of the number 2 guy over there, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So he is a high-ranking person at the public defender's office. So if y'all are I'm thinking, okay, 4 years for college and then law school. If you're still there in 8, 9, 10 years, you got a good group of people here who might be looking for work. Thank you for those comments.
On that note, I think both of our offices, and I think county council.
Take the microphone.
But I know the DA's office and our office, and I think county council as well takes college interns as well as law school interns. So if that's something you're interested in, I have cards with me today. I'm sure Mr. Legero has his information, and I would imagine.
Great point. And also, before I pass it on to Ms. Ratliff, I don't want to make light of what I just said. Mr. Wagner was and is a great lawyer, but now he is a great supervisor. And his comments were very well received by the court. I hope you listened to him because I think he was spot on. Ms. Ratliff.
I also agree that this competition is very nice to see the young people in our community step up and really take this on. It showed that you're really well prepared and excited to do this and took it very seriously. I'm a native of Modesto. I was born and raised here. And then I did go off to law school. I went to Hastings, but I came back here to practice, and I've been here my entire legal career. And I think you all did an excellent job. I did agree with Judge Villalobos that I was really impressed by the defense's closing. I do mostly bench trials, so I'm well aware of having to focus on the judge and making sure that objections are made correctly and being able to respond to them. I think both sides did that well and responded to them and moved on, because your objections aren't always going to be sustained, and it's just something that happens. And I think just being able to move on with questioning is really important, and you all did that well. So, good job.
And before we move on to Mr. Leggero, I have to make a comment about that. Ms. Ratliff was assigned to my department for the better part of 5 years, and frankly is one of, if not the best attorney that practiced in front of me. And I was constantly overruling her. And she had to look at me, and you know, at the beginning it took us some time to figure it out, but she figured out what worked for me. She zealously advocated on behalf of her client, and I have some notes here about demeanor that I'm going to talk about in a little bit. What she said was spot on. Great comments. Thank you. Mr. Leggero.
Thank you, Your Honor. Great job, everybody. The witnesses were fantastic, by the way, and they can come across as very robotic, or they can come across as very relatable, and you were all very relatable. The difference between the two teams is like fractions. You know, I think both teams did an amazing job. I've coached mock trial for years. I've scored mock trial in the past. Every year, I'm impressed with the talent, and hopefully that talent will join our ranks, whether it's the public defender's office, county council, or the DA's office. We want local talent, and we want to hire you as attorneys. So please, when you go to law school and you successfully pass the bar, we want you to come back and join our ranks. We prefer to have people that are local, and you're all as talented as most attorneys that we see in the courthouse right now. You guys do a great job making your arguments. There's some tweaks, some nuances, some things that each one of you has that with time you polish those out. And some of them, if you are following up the question with a yes or correct, you know, like Reed said, you don't need to do that. There's a more effective way to do that, but that just takes time and learning how to ask a question that's loaded and gets the information that you want out of your witness. So great job, everybody, and good luck to whichever team goes on. And if you have specific questions of any one of us, I'm sure we're happy to hang around and talk to you about those. So
Thank you.
Your Honor.
And I have several comments I want to make, but the first thing I want to do is, first of all, I forgot to say thank you to these 3 attorney scorers in particular for being here for this final round. Thank you to your offices for having attorneys come and score previous rounds. But very specifically, thank you for the district attorney's office, because year in and year out, you know, I don't know if y'all make them do it, you force them to do it, you highly encourage, I don't know. What I do know is that every single year, there's a whole mess of deputy district attorneys that are scoring these rounds, so thank you for that. I want to address the comments that were made by the lawyers, and then I want to go over my comments here. First of all, I want to talk about what Ms. Ratliff and Mr. Leggero just said as far as we want you. I'm sorry, I just have a bit of mask issue here. Okay. So my advice to you is go away as far as you can. You know, take this career of yours to high school and law school as far as you can, do the best you can for yourself, but then come back. We need you. When I was on the school board, that's what I said in my graduations. What these lawyers just said is 100% spot on, and I want to give you an example of that. I left and was a federal, assistant federal public defender in the District of Nevada. I was an okay lawyer, I did a good job. When I was in Reno, I didn't know what it was like to be a Nevadan, right? I didn't get it, I didn't understand the mindset. I came back and I was a deputy public defender here in Mr. Wagner's office, before his time, but in his office. I was doing a suppression motion, just like the pretrial motion that you did today. An officer got on the stand and said that he pulled someone over because of their proximity to Prescott Estates. Prescott Estates is a not so wonderful, at least at the time, was a not so wonderful neighborhood off Prescott. Okay, the person was pulled over at the Tony Roma's. Tony Roma's is gone. It's where Nothing Bundt Cakes is right now. Y'all probably know where that is. Since I'm from here, I knew that it was just as close to Dutch Hollow, which at the time was one of the nicest, if not the nicest neighborhood in town, as it was to Prescott Estates. I would have never known that but for being from here. So that's something that you can serve your clients by doing. Please come back. Now, I have a whole bunch of positive comments to make about individuals and about the group as a whole. I do have some constructive criticism, and I want to tell you why I'm giving you this constructive criticism. One of you will be going on to state. I had the privilege of going to state 3 times, and all of those 3 times, we got eliminated right in the first round. We were good enough for here, not good enough for there. All right? And it is, I think, all of our goals for you to go forward and be excellent. And so because of that, some constructive criticism I'm going to offer, but it's in a spirit of making you better. Let me start with this one. Mr. Leggero, I want to ask you, in your mind, think about the best birthday, Christmas, Hanukkah, whatever present you ever got in your life. Think about that. You got it in your mind? I do. What was better, that or you as a district attorney realizing that the defendant is going to testify in a case?
Well, that defendant is
Right. Defendants don't testify. They rarely testify in real life. And if you're a DA, you're like, okay, I can ask them just about anything. Reason why I say that is think holistically about your case. There was, when you were crossing the DA, the defendant, you made some very good textbook objections, right? But the more the defendant talks, the more they're going to get themselves in trouble. So that is an advanced way of looking at the case. So just a thought. Some comments. I thought your opening statements were both phenomenal as far as laying a story. This is a story of revenge. This is a tragic accident. I think the defense did a better job of linking that opening down into their closing, but you both did a phenomenal job as far as your openings. I already told you what I thought about that redirect of the sheriff. I thought it was phenomenal. Okay, some technical issues. Now, several of you said that you direct the court's attention to X, Y, or Z. I would ask that you never say that again, and let me tell you why. I'm the boss here, right? And when I say that, it's not because I like to be the boss. It's because since I wear this robe, I have to be in charge. So I don't like anyone to direct me to do anything. And is it fair to say that most judges are like that, right? And so you say the same thing differently. I invite the court to look at Exhibit A. I invite the court to listen to Exhibit B. When y'all go to state, trust me, the attorney scores are going to get that, and it will be well received. I want to talk a little bit about non-responsive versus this question is becoming a narrative or falling into a narrative. From my perspective, non-responsive is hands down. If you imagine your objections to be a tool belt, right? Like a hammer, a chisel, a screwdriver. Non-responsive, appropriately used, is the absolute best objection that you can ever do. And from my perspective, here's how that works, and I wrote a note down about some of the testimony. When we were talking about the exhibit with the snake and, how's the snake, and it's 2 feet and 2 inches at its widest point or whatever, and then there was a comment, and it's the 16th most deadly snake in the world, or it's 16 times more deadly than whatever. That was not responsive, and the reason why was because the question is, what did you observe? What did you observe about the snake? The answer was very responsive, except for that part. That objection would be sustained every single time by every single judge. The narrative is more like, is it not? I prefer black and white. Imagine baseball, you got a foul line, it's either in or it's out. With the non-responsive objection, you can really easily get that in. And also, before I move on from that, tensions got a little high at some points today. And I mean that with the lawyers, and I mean that with the witnesses, okay? I want you to realize that as a judge, I will always protect my witnesses. Always, 100% of the time, without fail, okay? So that means that if people are getting snitty with each other, the witness will always win, the lawyer will always lose. So how do you deal with that if you're a lawyer? Above the fray. Stay above the fray, okay? I'm going to talk about an attorney who's no longer here. There was a gentleman by the name of Tom Brennan who prosecuted gang cases. He did a bunch against me, sent a bunch of my clients to life for a very, very long time. He was the nicest, sweetest guy that you would ever deal with as he was putting your client away for the rest of their life, all right? He was a sweetheart. Am I wrong about that? He was a sweetheart. And so as lawyers, you always got to be above the fray. And if you feel yourself kind of getting into it, the emotions of it, just take a moment. Just take a moment. That's totally good. One of you withdrew an objection after you heard the response. I think that was you, sir. I frankly think that was one of the most lawyerly things I saw today. You tried something, it didn't work. The other side very appropriately responded to it. You're like, I'm good, Judge. Let's move on. This doesn't make or break my case. I thought that was phenomenal. Great job. Let me just take one more thing. Because this happened several times. The first question, hey, please tell us a little bit about yourself. Never works in real life, okay? When you're talking to an expert, tell us your qualifications. The second question that was asked was, tell us your experience in the field. Totally appropriate. The question, hey, how you doing? Tell me about yourself. What's going on? We can't start questions that way. That would be, it's not relevant, calls for a narrative. There's a bunch there, and I think both sides did that. I'm wrapping up here. One that I wanted to say, the pretrial, both sides, phenomenal use of the cases. Could have slowed down a little bit. Great job relating the cases to the facts here. So to our pretrial attorneys, phenomenal job. One thing, and I think this matters, y'all look great. You really do. I mean, the lawyers, I mean, the witnesses, our bailiff, our timers, you all respect the solemnity of these proceedings. You've taken the time to get yourselves ready and here. And in past years, you know, we've had like PowerPoints and pictures, and I see you all like in jeans and pizza parties, and I know that that's what you do. That's who you are. But today, you are attorneys. Today, you are doctors. Today, you're on trial for your life, and y'all did a phenomenal job on that. I think I'm going to leave my comments at that because we're getting to the end of the hour here. I think we have to do a couple of things. At this point, is it the right time for the schools to announce their MVP? Is that good? Can we do that now? Yes. So for the prosecution, have you decided on a MVP for the defense? Sure. Yeah, just, chat it out, talk to each other, then let us know who the MVP is on each side. And if y'all need to come and join, feel free to do it. Yeah, go to your coaches is what I'm hearing. You all have really, really good, great comments. Mr. Peckinpah, I see over there. I guess there's... I am. I'm tired. Yeah, well, I see that there is... How are you, sir? Scott. Good to see you. Thank you. This is awesome. Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, are we ready? On behalf of the prosecution, hold on, drum roll, please. Got it. Our MVP is for the defense?
Shannon McGee, Your Honor.
All right. Good job. Okay. And for the defense, who's our MVP for the prosecution? All right, round of applause. Great job. Now, I don't know, what do we do next? We're going to take a break. Okay, this is a great time for a break.
right. Good evening. I am Scott Kuykendall, County Superintendent of Schools, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to the award ceremony for the 38th annual mock trials. This year's mock trial, People vs. Kobe, is the trial of Jamie Kobe, a horticulturist living in the community of Burnsley, California, a semi-rural town in the high desert. Kobe is charged with the homicide of Kobe's landlord and next-door neighbor, Eric Smith. The prosecution argued that Kobe should be convicted of first-degree murder or the lesser offense of voluntary manslaughter. This competition, sponsored by the Stanislaus County Office of Education, that's us, offers students from our high schools an opportunity to gain knowledge and understanding of the link between our Constitution and the substance of the law as applied by our courts and legal system. This event is a true collaboration effort between schools and the legal profession. We are so grateful for the more than 50 attorneys and judges who presided as either judges or scorers at this year's competition. At this time, I want to acknowledge team coaches, attorney coaches, every parent, grandparent, family member, friend, and guardian to these students. Your commitment is a key element in their success, and your support makes all the difference in their lives. I also want to congratulate every student who participated in this year's competition. We know from past participants that mock trials has had a significant impact on the lives of many of them. And I can personally attest to this because my own son, who graduated from Gregorian in 2020, was part of mock trials. Students not only increase their skills in reasoning, listening, and speaking, but many of them do go on to pursue careers in the legal field. At this time, I would like to introduce one of my favorite people, Mary Ann Sanders, SCO board member and Education Foundation board member, who will assist with the presentation of awards. But before we begin with the awards, did you wave, Mary Ann? Did you wave to everybody? Okay, there you go. Before we begin with the awards, let's give a warm welcome to the following schools that participated in this year's mock trial. Are we back? All right, now we're live. Okay, to the individual awards, what many of the spectators here in the room maybe didn't see, but we just had a PowerPoint presentation with all of the different schools listed as well as their team coaches, just to give them recognition. All right, so we're gonna do something similar. So individual awards, we would like to recognize each coach and their selected top performers for each role, and we include Best Pretrial Attorney, Best Prosecution Attorney, Best Prosecution Witness, Best Defense Attorney, and Best Defense Witness from each team. Here tonight to present the Ryan Dickerson Award for Excellence in Leadership in Mock Trial, please welcome Ron and Lynn Dickerson.
Thank you very much. We really appreciate Stanislaus County Office of Ed giving us a few minutes every year to present this award in memory of our son Ryan. We were mock trial parents too, like many of you participating and watching tonight. Both of our sons participated in mock trial, and it was a great experience for both of them. In fact, our son Ross won a statewide award the year that one of the years that he participated. So it's a special event to us. And our son Ryan went to Modesto High School and was a mock trial star in his own right. So tomorrow would be Ryan's 33rd birthday, but he died the summer that he graduated from high school. He drowned while lifeguarding at a summer camp in the summer of 2007. And to say that it was a loss, is such an understatement, because he really was just an extraordinary human being. And I say that because I'm his mom, but everyone who knew him would tell you that. And so we were just sort of intent on figuring out ways to keep him from being forgotten. Because when someone that special dies, you just really worry about that happening. So one of the many things we did was to establish this award, and we asked the Stanislaus County Office of Ed to work with the coaches to ask every team to choose sort of the outstanding leader on their team every year. And then they submit those nominations to us, and we review them all, and then we choose one sort of grand prize winner of the Ryan Dickerson Excellence in Mock Trial Award. And that person gets a really beautiful crystal trophy and a $250 cash prize. So we're going to tell you who the winners of the individual schools are and who the big winner is. So.
Okay, since you guys are here, we're going to start with Turlock. And you're going to get the certificate for the Turlock team is going to go to Martin Berteo. Yeah, come on up. Yeah, this is a real difficult time for us because every one of you guys are just outstanding, and so it's really a difficult choice. And then from Modesto High, we have Shannon McGee. Okay, so we'll go through these. From Patterson High School, it's Evelyn Hernandez. Johansson High School is Carla Araza. Houston High School is Tori Kelly. From Enox, Daniel Ruiz, I'm sorry. I'm trying to be fancy. From Downey is James Swanson. From Davis, it's Grace Assumption. And from Bayer, it's Sarah Nunnally. And the recipient this year of the Ryan Dickerson Award from Gregory High, Fallon Wolfley. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ron and Lynn. Now, I would like to introduce Judge Linda McFadden to introduce the Ray Ledeen Inn of Court Spirit of Stanislaus County Mock Trial Award.
Thank you, Scott. I echo all the comments that were previously made by everyone. Applaud yourself for being here and for participating in this program. So, for some of you, an inn of court sounds a little odd because an inn means you check into a hotel, right? Well, the concept of the Inn of Court is similar to that. In England, the people who want to become attorneys actually live in an inn with other attorneys and are mentored by attorneys. And this produces professionalism and ethics in the practice of law. And that's the concept of the American Inns of Court, is to improve professionalism and ethics within the practice of law. And there are thousands of chapters of Inns of Court. Our local Inn of Court is the Ray Ledeen American Inn of Court. It is named after Judge Ray Ledeen, who was instrumental in starting the Inn of Court program in our community. And I believe his son was a participant in the mock trial programs. The mock trial programs does produce several outstanding attorneys and judges. We have Judge Ruben Villalobos here tonight. He reminds me of how old I am because I was his mock trial judge when he was in high school. So thank you, Judge Villalobos. I appreciate feeling old. But that just shows you what you're able to accomplish. And so tonight we had a difficult decision. The coaches have given us names and descriptions of students that have participated in this year's program. And our committee from the Ray Ledeen Inn of Court had a very difficult decision this year, but we are awarding the Spirit of the Stanislaus County Mock Trial Award and Scholarship to Lucy Liang. And I don't know if she's here tonight, but it's a $500 check here. Lucy? Congratulations, Lucy. In here you'll find a check for $500. And congratulations for all you've done. And congratulations to all of you. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Judge McFadden. Now I would like to bring up our very own Mary Ann Sanders to introduce the Hall of Fame Award.
Thank you very much. I wanted to take my mask off because I think it's a lot easier for people viewing from their homes, hearing me pronounce things differently. So it is such an exciting honor for me to be the one that will be presenting tonight's Hall of Fame Award. The Hall of Fame Award recognizes a coach for his or her commitment and leadership in mock trials program. Teams cannot exist without a coach, and we're grateful for all those coaches. It takes a tremendous amount of time, passion, and effort, and they do not get enough credit. This year's Hall of Fame Award goes to a coach that has been involved with mock trials for 17 years plus, and led his 2019 team to the state finals. A former student, Grace Sanders, has this to say about her mock trial coach. The main thing I would say is that he always believed in me a little more than I believed in myself. I remember I went into mock trials auditions for the first time in my junior year with no idea of what I was getting into, and he said that he wanted me to be an attorney. This immediately terrified me, but the confidence he had in me to do well made me have confidence in myself. He was always there to provide a constructive remark, but was also always ready to make us laugh and keep us engaged. As only a second-year mock trial participant, I never dreamed I would have the opportunity to go to state, and I would love to say that I was that it was all the participants doing, but it wasn't. It was mostly our coach with his endless support and helpful critiques to our materials that made it the best it could be. I could never have asked for a better mock trial coach. Judge Rick DeSasso became an attorney coach 8 years ago when his son participated in this year's Hall of Fame coaches team. He said this coach constantly encouraged students and helped them succeed. He is able to bring the best in each individual student, no matter what their previous experience is with public speaking or performances. Perhaps the best example he can give of his impact on students is that he is the only teacher who has now adult son, and his friends still keep in touch with him constantly throughout each year. Also, due to his direct influence, a number of students from his mock trial program have gone on to law school and become attorneys. Judge DeSasso personally sworn into the bar one of these students this past December. Drum roll. Our 2022 Hall of Fame award goes to Coach Mike Richards, Bayer High School. You bet.
Well, I honestly hope that Mike Richards is watching tonight, and congratulations. Such a great guy. Does he know already? Okay. All right, and now we would like to, are we good, Brandon? Okay, and now we would like to recognize the Journalism and Courtroom Artist Competition winners. For the journalism portion of this competition, students experience a courtroom setting from the perspective of a news reporter. They learn about the American legal system, observe the action in the courtroom, and then write an article based on the case. This year's winner of the journalism contest is, and I love this name, Rana Bananka, Modesto High School. Rana Bananka. Congratulations. The mock trial program also allows artistically talented students the opportunity to participate in the courtroom artist competition. The courtroom artists observed their school's mock trials and created a drawing of the courtroom scenes. And the winning courtroom artist is Catherine Aquino Azevedo of Turlock High School. So hopefully Catherine's watching too, so congratulations. Both Rana, our journalism winner, and Catherine, our artist winner, are eligible to compete at the virtual state mock trials final in March. It is now time to announce the awards for the championship teams. The winner of the Stanislaus County competition will represent Stanislaus County at the state mock trial finals next month. So in anticipation of declaring this award, can I have the defense team kind of come and stand over here? Can I have our prosecution team kind of come stand over here? Okay, scoot in. Follow the instructions at the guy with the camera. Okay, there you go. A little more. No, being on camera is a good thing. All right, so Turlock High School and Modesto High School competed earlier today in the championship round. After a fierce trial, great presentations on both sides, the 2022 Stanislaus County Mock Trial Championship team is Modesto High School. Congratulations to Turlock, the mock trials runner-up. Again, congratulations to all of our participants. Thank you so much for being here. And again, a huge thank you to the attorneys, the judges, and coaches who invest hours into prepping these teams of students. Thank you, and we will see you again next year. Congratulations.